Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Looking forward to tonight. Big show, big show. I've been watching you for a while, Rich. So let's get over to introduce you. I hope you're well. I hope the chat is well as well. Happy New Year, because this is actually my first, pretty much my first live show since New Year. So I hope you've all had a good New Year's and a good Christmas with your family. Obviously, we'll delve into your life story. So, you know, you don't have to go through that in a short summary. But please give a brief intro to who you are, what you're about, what you're currently doing at the moment, any platforms you're on, we can plug them. We have mods in the chat that will also put the links in there for you to for you guys to go and subscribe to. So over to you, Rich, and Happy New Year's, and I hope you're well, mate. Are you there? I can't hear you. Has he froze? Oh, that's a good start. That's a good start. Okay, guys. So this is his book, Charlie 4 Kilo. If you want to go and get it, it's on Amazon. He's also on TikTok. He has like 50,000 subscribers on TikTok. So let's try and see if we can get him back. Let me just message him. Look, he's just been speaking to him for like half hour. And then this happens. It's the silent stream. Well, I'm going to ring him, see if he's having problems. I'll play a tune. Oh, here he is.
I thought it was my end. I thought it was your end, but it was my end.
Well, what a disaster that is. We have 5,000 people watching. Now we're down to 21.
And they've all gone.
They've all gone. How are you? You're right.
Yeah, I'm okay, but I thought you were going to choose like the 11-minute version of Angels then, but it was the short version.
Oh yeah, I didn't want to keep them waiting for like 11 minutes. There's a few people. Someone called it a gay tune, but that's a blast from the past for you, isn't it?
It's like that tune is like what 25 years old now. I think 26 years old. So
Yeah,
I expect they called it gay, but I don't think they were probably born.
But yeah, I don't know how much you heard. I just said like give a brief intro of yourself. Obviously, we're going to go through your life story shortly.
Yeah.
So just a brief intro of yourself and where people can find you and what you're doing now.
Yes, my name is Rich Jones, also known as the Lost Soldier on TikTok, social media. I'm ex-forces, went into close protection, very much involved in the drug game, eventually convicted of conspiracy to supply cocaine, got given a 15-year prison sentence. Off the back of that, I now support veterans. I'm an author of the book Charlie 4 Kilo, and I'm basically a kind of an activist, trying to support people from not getting involved in that, but more so trying to support veterans when they come out of the forces from making the same mistakes that I did. And that's what I'm all about right now.
Absolutely. So obviously you're supporting veterans at the moment. So how can people, if anyone wants to donate, if you're watching this on the replay, I'll put links in the description. But how can anyone support via donations to yourself?
Yeah, so set up as a not-for-profit organisation, not as much as a charity, but for a non-profit organisation. If you want to support me and help out, contact me on the email provided, and then just drop me a line, offer your support, and I'll send some paperwork over, and we can get the ball rolling.
Brilliant. So let's crack on. Actually, before we crack on, I'm going to open up with a little icebreaker, something I haven't done before. So I'm going to ask you a question. If you could, dead or alive, it doesn't matter who they are, celebrity or non-celebrity, if you could have the session, it doesn't have to be a session, it could be like a meal or something, but the session with any three people, dead or alive, who would you pick?
Oh, how long have I got for shooting from the hip?
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you my three. You've got a few more seconds. So
go on then.
I'd go with Tyson Fury, heavyweight champion of the world. I'd go with Paul Gascoigne, because he knows how to have a session.
He does.
And I think he's got some great stories. Good storyteller. Tyson Fury also, he'll be there as your protection. Do you know what I mean? No one's kicking off if he's around. And he's also quite funny.
Yeah.
And I'd go with Cole Pilkington, dry sense of humour, typical British guy. So that would be my top three.
Well, do you know what? I'm kind of similar to yours, because I thought of the first one that came to my mind was Ricky Gervais, because not only is he funny, but he's also really he's quite opinionated, and I need someone like that just so I can just have a good laugh with, because he will say the sort of things I used to say years ago, but he can get away with it certainly. The second one would be Dwayne Johnson, because there's something about the guy. He's a big old lump, but he's got something about him. You're just warm to the guy, and plus he's huge. And then third was my granddad. The third was my grandfather, who died when I was 15, and he was in the Royal Tank Regiment, same as me. He never saw me join up, and I've always would like to sort of see what he thought about my journey into the Tank Regiment, and then subsequently, because he was this character just sat in the corner of the room. He had one eye. He was hit by a landmine in the African desert. So he had one eye. His leg was all knackered. He used to hobble around, but he was always just kind of this character that everyone just a typical granddad from the 70s and 80s. He was just there. He had the flat cap on, a bit like the one like you've got on today. Proper granddad. And I just
proper Peaky Blinder. He was a Peaky
proper.
Blinder.
Yeah. But I'd love to meet him again and just say, what do you reckon, Granddad? He'd probably give me a slap and say, you did all right. You started out so well and it ended okay. So that's my three.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mad one. I was actually going to pick you, man. I reckon you could have a bit of a session. I was close to picking you.
You used to, mate. I don't have what's known as a life anymore. I just kind of I'm so clean as a whistle that it disgusts me sometimes. That I think I'm actually the person now who's probably the one that's the sober one in the party, doesn't really drink anymore, certainly don't do anything else. And I'm just kind of like, what's happened to me? What has happened? But I feel better for it. But back then, 20 years ago, it would have been a good one.
You've had a roller coaster of a life, and we'll get into that. So, I mean, we don't have to delve too much into your childhood. Obviously, you're from the Bristol area.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so how was that growing up in Bristol?
It was all right. The thing is, I've said this on other interviews. My dad was in the police force, and that might seem quite a contradiction to the direction I took in the end. But I grew up in a police house with my dad and a row of houses which were all the police, and me and my brother used to run around pretending to be little police officers and just playing around. But growing up in the 70s and 80s, we grew up in a little area called Hembury in Bristol, and I look at it now, I think, how did I survive growing up there? Because it's a bit rough. And I thought we grew up watching skinheads and mods fighting on the fields, like sat on our shed roof. So we kind of grew up with this really weird. Well, people look back now and see films like, say, Quadrophenia, for example, or films like that where you see these guys. It was really like that. And that's what we grew up seeing. So childhood was great fun. You know, it was analog, wasn't it? It was all games. It was all real stuff. You built dens. You made dams in the streams. You went to the shops, shoplifted, or seen out the bins in the back, and that was my childhood. It was great fun.
Now everyone's on iPhones. Like, it's a shame.
I know.
I feel like a lot of. I mean, I still had that sort of childhood. I mean, still, you know, I think it was PlayStation ones, but I think I still had that kind of childhood where you go around to the park, make dens, you know, play Aki 1, 2, 3, or whatever it was called, and British Bulldog game, and
I still kick the can and all that sort of knock out ginger, knocking on people's doors and running, hoping it wouldn't get caught.
Just obviously, you said your father was a police officer. I mean, like, how was your fellow schoolmates treating you? Because, like, I'm pretty sure in a school, if my father was a police officer, there'd be a few things said to me. Do you know what I mean? So, did anyone try and say anything? Go on.
Yeah, looking back, I mean, when I look back now, I said there were some kids who just said, like, your dad's a copper, and you get that kind of thing. And to me, I just grew up with it. It was part of that. Yeah, so it didn't bother me. I didn't find any offense to it. But we would go around and certainly all the kids in the area would know that we lived in the police houses, which would mean, you know, but by default, your dad or your mum was going to be in the police, usually your dad. But what they didn't realise is the things that went on in the police back in the 70s and 80s, it was far from clean. And we used to go get taken to because my dad played rugby as well as in the police force. And every Friday night, without fail, we'd be off to the local police station, to the clubhouse, which don't exist anymore. And it'd be like a room above the police station with a skittle alley, a bar, snooker hall. They would all get completely hammered and all get back in the cars and drive home, including my dad. And so I grew up with this weird thing, looking at the police as people that I guess maybe I've not really focused on that. That's given me this really bizarre impression of how the law works. There's this kind of wavy line, isn't there? If it's acceptable to behave in a certain way, uphold the law. And this firm, solid line you've got, which is right from wrong. At what point do I know what's right from wrong? From a young age, I've seen the police getting in the cars absolutely assholed, and all of a sudden they're driving their cars. So for me, I grew up with that, and I suppose it maybe left something in my mind of struggling to figure out what's right from wrong.
I suppose probably back in your day, police was probably more respected maybe from civilians rather than they are today. I mean, they're pretty much looked down upon now at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, they carried truncheons, and you would get a slap if you were on the street. They just literally grab you by the scruff of the neck and take you home because they knew where you lived. They take you home and take you to your parents, and you get a proper seeing to by your parents. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just how it was back then.
I think it needs to be brought back, to be honest. I think the police have gone soft. I think the police have gone soft at the moment, to be fair. But moving on. So obviously, I know a little bit about your childhood. Obviously, unfortunately, your parents departed. What was about 14, 15 years old?
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, I was 14.
No, not departed. They split up.
Yeah, so and that's quite common in certainly with the police families, is divorces at a high rate. And it was something which, as a kid, I thought, I hope it don't happen to me, because I had friends whose parents had divorced, and I thought I wouldn't, because I was from what I consider as a loving background. I had my mum, my dad, my brother. We had a cat and a budgie and all that sort of thing, and that was that was my world. That was my world. And then when they split when I was 14, it's such an impressionable age as well. My mum left because it wasn't easy living with a copper, because the nature of my dad's job was such that he was under a lot of pressure. He really did. I can't say publicly, but he really went to a point where he was doing a lot of really low profile, but high profile work, if that makes any sense.
Right.
And their marriage just fell apart, and it kind of just, I don't blame anyone, but it did make me think about what my world had just basically been ripped apart and shattered. And I thought to myself, well, what do I do now? Where's my direction? What am I supposed to do? Because this idea I had of a happy family and my vision of perfection was gone. And I just saw the fact that my mum's gone that way. My dad's got custody looking after us. Me and my dad did a great job of bringing us up, but I just turned into I wasn't a little shit. I just became really, I think, unresponsive to anything. I just didn't care anymore. I just felt, well, I lost interest of any academic qualification. I lost interest in school.
So you were skipping school quite regularly?
Yeah, I think the last year when I was 15, coming up to 16, I think I was out of school more than I was in, because we had things like inset days, exams.
So when you get like I mean, was the cane back in the days when you was at school?
Yeah, the cane was very much.
Did you not get that quite often then with all this skipping school?
No, I never got caught. Never got caught.
How could you not get caught? People would know that you okay, where are you? Like, you must have been that quiet.
Well, yeah, I was a really quiet pupil. I wasn't one of the loud ones who was out there. I was. You wouldn't know I was there unless I asked a question. So back then, you could actually get away with going into a class. We would go into school in the morning, go into the tutor, do the registration in the morning. So yeah, I'm here, and then we'd be out the back gate. Would be gone, and then for classes, we'd have a couple of mates who would stay in and so just answer my name on the register, and they would just say, yeah, Rich Jones, yes, miss, and that'd be it. They didn't care. They didn't even check. As long as they heard a yes to the name, we got away with it. I don't know how now, but I never got caught for bunking off. Which is crazy when I think about it.
Yeah, but it must have ended at some point. Like, I don't know, did your parents find out?
No, nobody found out. And we got to the point when my dad was so busy with work. And what I found was my dad had spoken to, when they'd first split, my dad spoke to my tutor and he said, look, me and my wife are going for a divorce. We've split up. Go easy on Rich. Keep an eye on him, but go easy on him. And I think that go easy on Rich meant let him get away with anything he liked. Because bear in mind, this was in 1984. And there was no computer systems weren't really working in schools. It's all paperwork. It's all done on paper. So things just got overlooked. And clearly they didn't do a good job of keeping track of where I was, because I was in town in the arcades most of the time. So,
I mean, obviously we're going to talk drugs later on in the show, but
yeah,
did you turn to any drugs or alcohol in your teen days?
No, drinking. We had a guy. There was a small group of us when I was 16. I think anyone these days, I'm not condoning it, but most 16-year-olds are having a drink, aren't they? You can legally have a drink in a pub with your parents at 16. We had a guy we knew, was a friend of ours, and he was from the States. He had a driving license, he had a car, and we would literally go and meet him. We drove to the local off license, go in at 16 and order our drinks. We get these. It was the 80s version of an Alco Pop. It was called Sun Country Refresher, and it was like a white wine fruit juice and lemonade mix. It tasted all right. And we literally buy 3 or 4 bottles of that off up to a place called Ashton Court in Bristol. We just get wasted. And that would be it. That would be my Friday night. And then I think I started clubbing at the age of 17. Drugs never came into it. I was totally dead against drugs. Wasn't interested remotely. Totally was not bothered. But I started clubbing at 17. There's a club called The Studios in Bristol. And my first impression of walking in, it was a big club. And it was the 80s. It was playing proper 80s music. But it was as we were going into not electronic dance music, it was just starting to come in. It was the early stage. You had things like, I think it's Farley Jackmaster Funk with things, Love Don't Turn Around. If anyone knows that song, that's what was going on when I first started clubbing in 1987. So I walked into this club. I've never known anything like it. I was hit by this atmosphere, which I was just intoxicated. I couldn't believe it. I was just, from that point on, I thought, I like this. I really want to do this. I could live at a club. Literally, I loved it that much. I thought I could live there. I walk around just in total, like, mesmerized by the lights and the volume of the music, the fact that the speakers shook my whole body. I was 17, you know, and I just couldn't believe it. I was just amazed. So at 17, I started clubbing, and that then it was just drinks. It was just drinking.
Yeah, I had a few other things. Let's say I went to the raves. Everyone knows what you do at raves anyway. I'm like 18, probably 21 those days. Yeah, with the bass just going through your body.
Yeah,
brilliant times, man. But I couldn't go back. But nice to think about now and then.
Nice to reflect on every now and again.
All right, let's move on. So obviously, you joined the army. Was it what 17?
18. Well, yeah, I actually
18?
applied when I was 17.
Okay, yeah. So how
So
did that
what
come
happened?
about?
Well, basically, my dad had met another. He had a couple of relationships between 84 and sort of, let's say, 87, and he met someone and he fell in love and he got married, and I just didn't get on with her. It wasn't her fault. The fact that she was probably closer to my age than my dad's didn't help, but I just didn't like her, and that was because I was an impetuous 17-year-old who just didn't want to do anything, and she saw me as just a lazy little git that didn't want to do anything either. So I kept bunking off of work. There's a theme here, isn't there? I go into work and I didn't.
Oh, actually, you was a welder, wasn't you? That's
That's
my
it.
trade.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
that's my trade as well. Did you not like it then? No.
I could have done, but the job itself was crap. It was just a case of we were making bitumen boilers, which are the things you see on the side of the road, boiling up tar to put on roofs and on the ground, usually on the back of a truck of some kind. We used to make those, and it was an apprentice job. It was £25 a week, which was back then it was okay, and I just hated it because I'd nearly lost my eye twice. We were doing arc welding, and we had to chip off the flux, don't you, when you do a bit of welding?
Yeah.
And we weren't given goggles. We were just like chipping away. And of course, you get a bit of this stuff.
Did you get it in your eye before?
Yeah.
Have you had arc eye as well?
I had it a couple of years ago. I was doing some welding, and I've never. The first time I had it was like a year before last. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't even see. I had to sit in a dark room with my eyes covered. It was horrendous. Last about 3 days. But yeah, wasn't very nice.
Horrible, mate. Honestly, it's just like having glass in your eyes.
Yeah, I woke up in the morning. It was just like someone had just dropped a fistful of sand in each eye, and that's what it felt like. Couldn't get rid of it. Horrible. I had sunburnt eyes, but yeah. So this job, I just sacked it off, and I binned it. And my dad found out, and he threw a wobbler, fair enough. And then he said, "Look, don't mess around, just get another job." So I did the same again. I had another job back in '87. I bunked off on that as well. My stepmom found out. She said, "Oh, your dad's gonna kill you when he gets home." I said, "Why is that?" So you've been bunking off work again. I said, "Well, I can't stand it." She said, "Why didn't you join the army?" And I thought, I said, "Yeah, I might get you off my back, mightn't it?" And I thought, let's just join the army, but don't actually get in. So I thought, so when my dad came over and said, "Dad, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to join the army." And he said, "Oh, son, well done. I'm so proud of you." And I saw how proud he looked straight away. I thought, shit, I've actually just said something. I can't let him down, but I didn't want to go in. I really didn't want to join the army. So I went to the interview in the careers office, had a chat, and said, "Yeah, that's fine." Passed all the preliminary tests, the aptitude test. They said, "Yeah, okay, no worries." So we'll get you off to Sutton Coldfield in about a couple of months' time, I think. So on the train up to Sutton Coldfield when we would be travel warrant. Did me a day and a half up there. Had me interview. They say, "Well done, you passed your fitness test. You've had your interview. Well done." They even issue you an army number at that stage. That's what number you're going to be. Next you do, you go down to the army careers office. About a couple of weeks later on, you swear to the oath of allegiance. You stand on it, put your hand up in the air, and swear to the Queen and the country. And it was such a whirlwind. And my dad was so proud of me that I thought, I can't let him down. So I'll just go to basic training, and I'll just jog it on during basic. So I got into basic, and just before that, I was in this club that I mentioned earlier, and I was just having a dance. I say goodbye to everyone. By this time, I'd become really part of the furniture. And these girls said to me, "So you're off training?" I said, "They said you'll never hack it. You ain't got it in you." I said, "What do you mean by that?" I said, "You ain't got it in you. You'll never do it." And that's the best thing that was ever said to me, because it made me think, no chance. I'm going to make sure I do this now. And then, because they'd said that, I couldn't back out. I had to do it. I had no choice. So I got to basic, and that was it. I didn't sell through it. It was hard going. I didn't prep at all. So I had no intention of getting through. So I didn't train, I didn't practice, I didn't do any fitness. I just turned up totally sort of ignorant to the whole process. And what a learning curve. 8 weeks of pure hell.
I bet so. So what do you remember about the day that you was enlisted then?
So the first day, so we got the train up, and there's a guy, I won't give his name, but he joined it. He was in Sutton Coldfield with me, and he was joining the same intake, 8809. So it was May 1988 was when we started, and my mates I saw him on the train. He was coming up from Truro, so he got on the train. His number was one apart from mine. So we'd sat on the train, and he was really keen. He'd been planning this for years. He was really keen on going in. And I was just like, yeah. He said, "Are you all right?" I said, "I'm okay. I'm good for this now. I want to do this." And we just remember this train journey, picking up these waifs and strays from Bristol through Birmingham, up through York and up to Catterick eventually, and just slowly seeing these guys getting on the train with their holdalls, singing they're joining that. And it's just this weird thing. And I remember when I left the train station, my dad saw me off. And the first time I ever seen my dad cry was he stood at the train station, I think out of pride, and he had a tear on his cheek. And I thought, I just can't let him down now. I cannot let him down, because I've got so much respect for my dad. And I always looked up to him because he was in the police, and he had this, in my eyes, he was this larger than life character. I looked up to him. So I thought, I can't let him down. So we got to Darlington train station up in Newcastle, up in the very, very north of England. And we got off, and it was a case of like, there was a guy in a uniform, probably a corporal of some kind. Right, you lot this way, you for basic training, and he could spot us a mile off. We were slouching around, walking with our bags. He said, "Stand up straight," and we thought, "Oh God, this is it. We started already." And he put us on the back of a 4-tonner, which is the old Bedford with the canvas sides and the metal drop-down door on the back. Climbed on first on one of those, jumped on the back, and that was exciting because we're on the back of this army truck being taken to this camp. None of us had a clue what to expect. We just rocked up at the camp, and that was it. I think went to the guard room initially to sign in, and then after that, you're just on this crazy ride. You can't get off, or you can buy yourself out. You can. It's called PVR, so like a premature voluntary release. You can buy yourself out anytime you like, and they push you. Same as on SAS There's Wins with Ant Middleton. And say, do you want to throw your armband in? Do you want a voluntary release? It's the same thing. They're pushing you to give up. They're trying to see how far they can take you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just crazy. The first morning was I think that the first day was kind of a bit of admin, given a bit of kit. The next day was just chaos.
What was the sort of things they made you do then?
It was just, they give us a briefing on the evening before, and they said, right, we're going to give you a rally. I think it was 6 o'clock, and the rally was loud. They can get out your beds. There's a lot of swearing, a lot of screaming, a lot of shouting, and you can hear people just literally waking up in shock. So think, oh God, what have I done? It's getting out of bed, just walking around like zombies trying to get ahead, and you got people screaming at you at the same time. Right, go and shave. I don't need shave anyway. Oh God, so you then think, well, I haven't got any hair to shave off. Even if you got no, they wanted to shave anyway, even if you ain't got a beard. So you had to shave, and they're sat there teaching some guys have never done it, teaching how to shave, and it was just this sequence of a point right down to the barbers. Get your hair cut off. Going to go and do this now. We were thinking, oh, they're going to skin our heads off. And they had the same barber, had a default cut, short back and sides. That's all he did. He didn't do any other style. You couldn't go in and say, oh, can I have this day? He just, yeah, there you go, short back and sides, job done. And you just on this, we call it a sausage factory. You just one stage after another. It might be a haircut. Then you're going to get some jabs. Then you get some training. Then you're going to do some drill. Then it's going to be some weapons training. And it was just relentless. And it was a lot of I won't say bullying, because it could be borderline. Some of the training staff there
it's teacher discipline, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's to teach you to do as you're told, because it's to teach you not to question things, because there may come a time when someone says to you, get down, and you sit back and say, well why? Because there's someone about to shoot us. You react on an order, and you react quickly. And then you question it afterwards. Yeah, if you think, why am I on the floor? We saw someone over there. We thought it might be trying to kill us. Yeah, so yeah, it teaches you discipline, and it teaches you a bit of resilience as well. Massive resilience. It teaches you to really push through anything. Just when you think you've got to your limit, you think you're going to give in, and they push you a bit further. Actually, I could still do this. I've got more in the tank. You find this energy and this strength. You don't know where it came from, but you keep on going.
Which countries did you actually serve in then?
So Cold War soldiers. So basically, it was Germany was where we were. Being a tank regiment, you can't keep hopping around because a lot of kit to take with you. So as a tank regiment, we were based in Germany. It was the Cold War front. So when you had the old, I don't know what your demographic on viewing is, but if you remember, if you look back to from the early 50s or late 40s up until the late 80s or very early 90s, you had the Cold War, which is East Europe and Western Europe. And Germany was split down the middle, and we were based over there as a deterrent against any hostile threats from what used to be known as the Warsaw Pact, which is basically the Russians and everything else. So we were over there. And it was it's called a Cold War because there was never any real conflict. A lot of espionage going on and a lot of potential hovering over the button for the old nukes. with the old days of Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev back in the 80s, when it was kind of a little bit very political about, are they going to launch the nukes? And it was always this big, massive threat in the 80s where people are terrified that it's going to actually happen. It never did. I don't think ever it was. It's just this kind of like, our gun's bigger than your gun kind of competition. But Germany was where we were predominantly based that was our long-term fixture, if you like.
Did you have much conflict yourself? And did you shoot anyone, or did you get
shot?
No,
we had a few things. I went to Northern Ireland in 1990, which was an interesting tour, because as a tank soldier, we dismounted from our tanks and we retrained as infantry just to get up to speed on various techniques that the infantry would have. I went to Northern Ireland as infantry soldiers, and we did 6 months in the Bandit country in South Armagh, which was really good. It was interesting. I just made me realize that I loved being in danger, because I felt so alive. Out there, walking around these fields, knowing you could get shot any minute. To me, I found it great. I thought it was really good. And this might sound stupid, but I really felt when I came back in off a patrol, it's like, yeah, I've actually done something. I'm not interested in the politics there. It was just, for me, it was doing a job. You could stick me anywhere dangerous, and I'll love it, because I think this is great. Because if I could walk out of it alive, I know it's been worthwhile. So I went to Northern Ireland in 90. We had some incidents with IEDs. Went to Cyprus with the UN in 93, which was just 6 months drinking. To be fair, it wasn't really. I wouldn't kind of class it as operational, but it was classed as UN. You get a medal out of it, but it's not earned. It's just a token medal, if you like. But yeah, apart from that, I left thinking that's it. There's nothing else going to happen. Now it's going to be quiet.
Well, I mean, would you say? Have you got a most brutal story at all that you witnessed in the army, or?
Do you know what? I didn't witness anything really, really bad, but you see, I think the worst thing is on tanks, accidents do happen. They're heavy machinery, and if you look inside of a turret, and if you don't know where to stand, you may as well step into a mincemeat machine, because you've got, when the turret's going around, some of it moves, some of it stays still. The bit that's of class is the hull, which is the bit where the tracks are. That's going in, say, one direction. And if you've got control of the turret and you want to say, right, I want to look over there, you move the gun to the left. So the turret will obviously rotate on that hull. So everything inside that turret moves, which isn't part of the turret. So if you've got your foot in the wrong place, or if you stood on the wrong thing, or you got your hand on something, you're just going to lose it. It's gone. There's no barriers or shields to protect you from the moving traverse. If you just hope to God that you got your foot there. And I've been times where I was led there, and I'm in the gunner's seat, and it's pretty cramped. You can stretch your legs out and put them into the traverse, and you've got to hope that the commander doesn't decide to whack the old button and send it off left, because you're going to start losing your feet otherwise. So gruesome was, we had one guy chopped his little finger off, which was really, or was it his thumb? No, his thumb. Sorry, his thumb. He was basically cleaning the gun in the back of the wagon, and we were removing a component. And I won't go into it. It's not necessarily going to the components names, but he's removing an item from the back of the gun, and there's a certain sequence you have to do in order to clean this gun, and it requires removing an item which releases the breech. So if you imagine you've got a hole there and you've got a breech like this, it snaps shut. See it in the back of the gun, so you can fire around. It's airtight, and it's very, very heavy metal, and it closes under 500 pounds psi. As this guy pulled the lever, the guy had his hand in the back of the gun. So he instinctively pulled his hand out as quick as he could, but he didn't quite get his thumb out. So we heard screaming. We were in the hangar next door. We heard someone screaming, "Oh my God, someone's chopped his thumb off." I thought, "Ooh, it's 6 shots." So we all ran next door to look, and we just saw the guy sat there, and he was like shaking, and his thumb was hanging down on a bit of skin. I said, "Oh, you'll be all right, mate. I'll get that back on." And luckily the Germans, he went into the local hospital in Germany, and they stuck a nail down through the bone, and they grafted it back on again, and he got his thumb back. So yeah,
good job on that.
More than mate.
I hope no one's eating that's watching this show.
Eating sausages for your breakfast with tomato ketchup. Yeah. So that, to be fair, you see a lot of fights. Yeah,
Sorry. I mean, so would you say that? Right. So would you say the lack of action played a part in your decision to leave? Like it was a fault. Would you say that? Yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at my timeline, I gained my first promotion in 92, early 92. So I've been in the army 3 and a bit years by this point. Scheduled, I was due, my second strike would have been around about 96, 95, 96. So we came back from Ireland. 1990, 1991. At that time, we had the first Gulf War in Iraq going off, 1991. We were watching it on TV. We were watching the Scud missiles going over. We were watching a lot. We thought, we were told, so when you get back from Ireland, you're going to go on 3 weeks leave or 2 weeks leave. It's called disembarkation leave. Basically, that helps you to, that's your version of decompression, if you like, from an active duty. When you get back, we got back from a leave. So, right, you're going back to Germany. You're now going back to Lulworth to retrain on the tanks. We haven't used the tanks for over a year because our tanks were now sat in Iraq waiting for us. They've been shipped out. So when you get back from the thing, you go retrain, and we're going to fly straight to Iraq. So, well, this is great. We're going to go straight for Northern Ireland, and then we're going to go to Iraq, and we're going to fight the Iraqi forces, liberate Kuwait, all this thing. So we were buzzing. We thought, this is amazing. So we did our week's training on the gunnery, got back at the speed again. We're flying back over. We got a word come through, and it said, "Oh, don't rush back, lads. Basically, the war's over. It's done. We're not needed." So we were devastated. We were absolutely just distraught. The fact that we could have, not only we spent 6 months trudging around on our feet as infantry soldiers, which is no disrespect to infantry, but that wasn't our chosen role. We had this chance in a lifetime to go to the Gulf, sit in our tanks, and actually do the job we were trained to do, and we missed it. We missed it by a couple of weeks. So we were devastated. We were fuming. So we looked at this and we thought, well, we're looking at the what was going on in the world at the time. The East had gone. The Berlin Wall had been come down in 89. There was no longer a threat. The terrorist threat from current day or from the last, say, 15, 20 years, that didn't exist at that stage. There was no problem. So we're looking at it thinking, I might have to bin it. But then they dropped this UN tour on our lap. Well, let's go to UN first. Let's go and do Cyprus. That we might get something out of that. So we went to that. Came back in 94 and I thought, nothing's going on. I said, I've done Ireland. I've missed Iraq. I've done UN. But what's the chance of something else coming up in my service time? Plus, promotion was really slow because of the amalgamations and disbandments, because of the Cold War was gone, so they started reducing the forces in Germany significantly, down by a half. So promotion had stopped. Everything was just ground to halt. And I thought, 24, and then I went on leave and I met a girl, didn't I? And that ruined it because I fell in love with her.
Oh, man.
And I had these 3 things now. I thought, I met this girl. I've been trying these distance relationships. It's just not working. This is I didn't have a mobile phone at this stage. They'd just been coming out. I thought, I've come back from Cyprus. I've had 6 great months in the sun. Back to Germany, it's raining. Promotion's really slow. I thought, I'm going to bin it. And my friends were starting to dabble on drugs for recreational use.
What drugs was that?
They were doing amphetamine then. So I came on leave and they're all flat out, weren't they? I thought, this is interesting. And they gave me a little bit, and I thought I was having a good night. I didn't realize I was off my tits on amphetamine. I just thought I was having a really good night. I just kind of I just went with it, and I started to see a lifestyle in Civvy Street, which I thought, that clubbing scene that I always loved when I first went to that club.
Yeah.
This sort of made that enhanced that and made me love it even more. So I came back and I signed off. So I'm going to bin it. So
how was that process? How was that? Oh, so you have to work a year, yeah?
Yeah. So if you sign off, if I signed for 6 years initially, and I've done at this point 6 years. So after your 6-year point, you don't have to buy yourself out. You have to give a year's notice. Before that, you've got to pay. You got to say, right, I want it, and usually a month's wages, I think. So I've got to pay a month's wages, pay up, and you can get yourself out or sign off for a year. So I thought, I'll sign off. I'll do my last year. I'll squeeze what I can out of the army and go from there. So, but that last year it's a short year. It's quick. So I took on this course. They'll give you they'll look at your current qualification. They'll look at how much you've given the army, how much of an asset you are, all the courses you've done. I think, right, you've been promoted. You've done so much, so they'll then allocate you a budget of a resettlement budget of how much money you can spend, and they just give you this folder, and they'll chuck all your details into this big old analog computer, and they'll print out some. Remember the old paper comes out, printed paper with the holes down the side, that printed paper, and it will list all your transferable skills and what you can do, and they'll give you a catalogue. You look through it, I think, right, what do you want to do with your budget in mind? And I saw a CP course for close protection and bodyguard work. I thought, perfect, that'll do me nicely. I thought, that's going to be dangerous, innit? I'll have a go at that. So I signed up for that course, and in April 95, I went off to Maidstone. So this was about some 8 months later, I think, went off to Maidstone, and the course ran by ex-SBS called Task International. And we sat on this course, and it was amazing. These guys were something else. I mean, to be working with the SBS was a privilege anyway, but these guys were just elevated our skills. So in 4 weeks, we went from, if we knew this much in the tank regiment, I knew this much more in 4 weeks by working with these guys. It was just phenomenal. The training, the level of professionalism, and the stuff they know was unreal. So yeah, it was a hard 4 weeks, but it was good. It was good.
Just like, obviously we'll go to the rest of your life, but if you could go back now, would you and change everything that's gone on, would you have signed off from the army, or would you have continued? If somebody said this is what's going to happen after you leave,
I'd have stayed in, mate. I'd have stayed in. I would have. My mates who were some of them are just leaving now. They've done over 30 years. They got medals from there out to there. It's unreal the things they've seen, but they're carrying demons. They are dealing with a few demons which they don't even know are there yet, and I could see it in them. We went to this a reunion back in, I think it's about 2009, down in Bovington, and our lads were there. It's the first time I've seen these lads in probably about, it would have been about, some of them 14 years since the day I got out, 14, 15 years. And I went into the sergeant's mess because they're all sergeants now. They've all promoted, and I saw them. And I looked at them. I thought, you guys are so different. They look like they'd just grown up, but they grew up with issues. They were sat there looking. They were just sometimes just staring around, sat there quietly drinking. I'm thinking, so much happened to these boys. Bearing in mind we'd lost someone really close to us. We lost a guy called Steve over it was in Iraq in 2003. We lost him, and that was really bad because that really knocked a lot of us, because he was this larger than life character. And when you lose one of your own, it does something to you which you don't expect. And even though I wasn't serving, it hit me really hard. And I often think on Remembrance Day, he's the guy I think about. I don't think about anyone else. I just think about him. And I think that loss sent like a wave through the whole regiment that made you realize that this is real and people do die. And I think that was what I saw in the guys when I went to this arena. I saw
especially,
them.
I mean, did they witness it as well? Did they actually see him?
Some did, yeah. A couple of them did.
That would affect you, especially if they're seeing like legs get blown off, arms blown off, or just outright being killed. I bet. Yeah. Mentally, that's going to take its toll on you, isn't it? So,
I think so.
And also probably have that relief in your head. So, fuck me, that could have been me as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And probably thinking, I wish it was me rather than him. So your mind's going to be everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, you get a thing called survivor's guilt as well, where you think initially, because you're so glad it's not you, I suddenly feel guilty for feeling that. And then the guy one of the guys that witnessed it, he took his own life some years later. It was bad. It was bad times. That whole thing was just bad times. But yeah, so I kind of think I wish I had stayed in. I really do. But part of me thinks if I had stayed in, where would I have been mentally? I mean, I've suffered badly with the stuff I've been involved in. That's taken its toll. But I see the guys now. I think I just hope they're okay. I think the most of them are, but they're carrying some scars which you can't see.
I know, it's a shame. Yeah, we'll get some RIPs in the chat for the fallen soldiers, if you don't mind, guys. But let's move on. So you've left the army. Where did you go then? Did you go back to Cyprus?
No, I wish I would love to. I went back to Bristol. So what I did is we went back to Germany. Okay. So I saw the last year out in Germany, and the weird thing is about this whole sign-off process. I finished my close protection course. I think it was ended about May. Early June, no, it was May, and I got back to unit. And when I got back to Germany, my regiment the majority were gone. We were provided something called OPFOR in Canada, which means you go over to Canada, a place called Battus, where we provide. It's the only place you can go which is vast enough to do live firing on tanks. So we go over there once a year and have a training, but you need an enemy contingent. So every now and again, your regiment will be given the opportunity to go over to Canada and pretend to be the enemy for the regiment, for the other guys going over the train. That's a 9-month posting. So when I got back to Germany, all our guys are gone. There was just what's known as a rear party, and there's still probably like 100 blokes left out, or maybe less than that, just keeping the lights on. So all the guys that were my close friends, bar maybe one, were gone. They weren't there. So I didn't get this send-off, which you kind of half expect you get after 7 years in the force. You think, I'm going to get some sort of send-off.
Yeah.
So I sat there thinking, why am I here? So I went and saw the RSM at the time was my old tank commander, and I said, I said, boss, because I just lost my uncle about 2 months previous to that. I said, boss, what's the chance of me just getting off? And he said, what's your situation? I said, well, look, I'm owed, you'll get a month's termination leave, which you get anyway. So I was due to sign off on the end of September in 95. So you get a month's termination leave. I had about 2 weeks leave left anyway. So that would have brought me to something like the middle of July. And he said, or so middle of August. And I said, look, can I just bail out? And he said, you're no good to me, are you? I said, not really, boss. No, he said, so you signed off a leave. I said, just go. So literally within about a week, I was sat on the bus stop outside my base going home. I was just going. That was it. So I got back. I had something like 3 months leave paid by the army.
Yeah.
When I got home, which was another problem, which didn't help me, because how can I put this? When you go on leave in the forces, when you're based in another country, when I go home, for me, that's me going on my holiday, because I'm on leave. I'm on time off. So I associated going home to Bristol with going on holiday. So there's a certain, and what do Brits do when they go on holiday? We usually go and get drunk and have a good time with party. So I had this association with being in Bristol as being on holiday, because I spent 7 years coming back, and whenever I saw it, I was enjoying myself. So I had this mentality. So just park that one for now. Just imagine that I'm associating Bristol with partying and clubbing. 3 months worth of leave. So I got back, so I didn't have to work, although I got a job on the door, a local door in Bristol city centre, which was fine, because they said, oh, you're more than, I said, you're not big enough. I said, look at my qualifications, mate. And they said, oh, we'll give you a door, see how you get on with it. And so I did that. So I was starting to do security work, but this is in 95. There's no regulation, there's no SIA. It was just like, after doors are run by villains or people supplying the drugs. It was that's how it was. I guess it is now, just better at it. So I was kind of being exposed to these two different worlds. And one of them was the security industry. And then, of course, there was my clubbing side of things as well, which goes off on one, doesn't it, a little bit?
Yeah. Let's go to the drugs. So obviously you taken amphetamine in Cyprus all those years ago. So how did you find this? What happened after that then? So you're obviously doing the doors. Did you start taking more drugs, or did you start getting on to being like, look, do you want to deal a little bit of?
Yeah. So the amphetamine was introduced to me on leave in England. So I didn't do it when I was over in Cyprus, but it was in that same era. So so what happened is, at this point, I wasn't thinking about ecstasy or anything else. I wasn't really thinking full stop. I just liked the way that amphetamine made me feel. It gave you that initial confidence. So I thought, I'm going to go on the door. I didn't even like the job. It was just a bit of cash in hand. So I thought, I have a little bit of whiz before I go up there. And I was doing this, and it just made the night really entertaining, and I quite enjoyed the experience. So I was doing the security, but the thing is, when I finished my door, and this is when pubs are shut at 11 o'clock, licensed hours were 11 o'clock, we're closing. I went to the local club, which wouldn't be the one I went to, a place called Odyssey in city centre. And I'd go in there, and I'd see my mates in there clubbing and partying, and they'd be on ecstasy, and I wouldn't be aware of this for the first few weeks. And then I'd get up in there, and my mate would come to me and say, have you done the usual bit? I said, yeah. He said, do you want a pill? And I said, I don't know if I want a pill. I said, I don't know. I said, I'm not really sure. He said, we're all on one. I said, yeah, clearly you're having a great time, aren't you? So he said, I said, oh, why not? Yeah, go for it. Let's just give it a shot. So he disappeared for like a few minutes, could have been longer. And he came back and he held his hand out, and I grabbed this thing. I said, what is it? So the $30. I thought, what does that mean? He said, well, just get it down your neck. So I net this thing. He said, give it about 40 minutes, mate. You'll know what's going on. And literally, mate, in half hour, 40 minutes, everything just changed. It's just the whole how can I put it? The club just took on it just transformed. The music, everything, and I could hear the DJ's voice. And I'll never forget this. The first time I did it, and I don't think they were the cleanest of pills, because it felt slightly trippy to some respect. And the DJ's voice was just booming. It wasn't just a little bit, it was loud. And I thought, this is really interesting. And next thing you know, I was just downstairs dancing. And I kind of start slipping into this routine of doing that when I finished the door work. And in the end, I just gave it the door work. I thought, I can't stand it. I'm hating this. I'm missing out on vital hours of dancing and clubbing. So why would I stand on a door for 4 hours for this when I go and just go and club instead. So I kind of bin the door work after about 3 months. I knocked it on the head. I thought, it's just not for me. I came out of the army to enjoy myself. I didn't come out of the army to stand on a door and watch other people enjoy themselves. So I kind of went down that route, and then it started off where I think there's a group of us, 4 or 5 of us, including myself, and we're just all good. And these guys worked hard. They had proper jobs. They weren't just like addicts. They just enjoyed a good weekend out. And it just started on Saturdays. And we went on a Saturday, and then one of the guys was scoring our pills for us, and he didn't want to do it anymore. And I said, well, I'll do it. I don't really have a problem with that. I've been in worse situations. So I went and got these pills, and it worked out. I got them a bit cheaper, so I could actually get a deal and I get mine for free, which for me, that was a byproduct of what I was doing. So it was a surprise, and I was happy with it. That's where it started off, just literally buying 4 or 5 pills for my mates, and it just built from there.
So you're just selling them in the clubs, obviously taking them yourselves.
Started off in the clubs with like 5 and 10, and what happened is people say, "Oh, you guys are having a good time," and I was always kind of very mindful about my approach. So still very military minded, and with the CP course and surveillance, I was doing a job in surveillance as well at this time. So I was very sort of surveillance, counter surveillance savvy. And I'd spend a lot of time assessing things. And although I would have taken ecstasy, and I would have been dancing, I would still have my wits about me to a degree. Although they wouldn't govern how I felt, I could allow myself to switch off if I wanted to and just completely let myself go, or I could switch myself on and use that energy I had to focus and apply in a different direction, which is quite handy to find. I find it quite useful in that way. And I just kind of built it up. So people are asking me for it, and I said, well, look, yeah, I could bring some in next week. So I started to get a few on credit. I was bringing in more and more every week. It's getting bigger and bigger. And in the end, I was taking in many. It's like 100 pills I was taking in there, and they'd be gone within an hour. And I had pockets full of money, and it's all scrunched up notes. I have to go to the toilets every 10 minutes to straighten it all out again. And
how much would you reckon you'd take home on just by one night's work on average?
So profit, not a lot, mate.
Profit
You know what? In the early days, before we started getting the club really sort of under our control, to a degree under our control, the profit margin was next to zero. Because if I was going to sell 100, I'd make a couple of quid on each one. So it's going to be 200 quid in there. So that's what I would have made. But the thing with that is, by the time I got into the club, I had a few drinks, taken a couple myself, that starts to dwindle down quite rapidly. And then you start buying other people drinks because you're off your tits, you're really generous and friendly. And just
it's basically paying for a night out, isn't it, really?
That's all it's doing. Yeah, it's paying for your night out, and it might cover a couple of costs in the week. It wasn't a lavish lifestyle. I was literally living for those weekends. And in the end, a friend of mine from the army camp, we had 3 of us come out of the force at the same sort of time, and we were living in these flats. We were all neighbours. We had basically these 6 Victorian flats for ex-forces. We had 3 of them boxed off. So we started to look at this thing as like this is going to become our way of life now. One of them wasn't involved in dealing, but one of the other lads was, and he was my partner. And we said, look, this is going to be this is us now. This is what we're doing. We come out of the army. This is our job. Although I was still doing surveillance for a good couple of years after coming out, it was dwindling a little bit because I was becoming less functional Mondays and Tuesdays. I was just too tired. Clubbing Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, I was finding it quite hard to get up on the Mondays and Tuesdays. So I was becoming less functional as the weeks were going on, the months were going on. So we decided to make it properly and do this thing like a proper business. And we did. So we started looking at how we could make this club work for us, because we found we were dishing out, let's say 100 pills on average in there a night, but there were also people on there, so we were sorting out as well prior to going in there, maybe the day before. So they were all gravitating towards the same club. And with this little corner, it's called Pillhead's Corner. And we called that because it was the fitting name for it. And everyone else knew it as Pillhead's Corner because we just stood there, we danced a lot. And the atmosphere was fantastic. So what we found out was we were starting to get bolt-ons for people working in the club. And it started off with one of the assistant managers there. He would come in and he would say, look, I can get you things in for you. Don't worry about the door. I'll bring them in with me during the daytime. We give them to you at night. But that's great because the going through the door is the biggest problem. Even though we had good hiding places, we weren't guaranteed that we weren't going to get spun or they weren't going to have the police dog there at some point. So he would bring the pills in before we started, and he would be in there waiting. So the idea then was payment was done by ecstasy. We'd give him a free pill. We then started getting the DJ and the lighting jock on board. So 2 guys beyond in the DJ responsible for the music, give them a pill each because they were sending customers our way. So we'd have the music sorted out and the light show sorted out. We had a couple of bar staff, give them a free pill. So we had free drinks all night. A couple of doormen, give them a free pill. Then we had security covers. We'd have our backs covered because if anyone came into, for example, we were going to get searched, they can give us a heads up. Or if there's some problems, they wouldn't kick us out. They'd just kick the other guys out, and that's how it worked. And it was set up really well. So because we're giving so many drugs away, we kind of lost profits on those, but we saved it from the money we were spending beyond the bar.
So how did you get into the more just say straight cocaine?
Just say cocaine.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Yeah, how did you get into that? Is it because there was no real profit in what you were selling? You're putting a lot of work in, so that was basically the reason. Yeah.
Yeah. So round about 97, 98, the pill market crashed. There was a drought. It crashed. Mitsubishi's came on the scene, which rebranded the whole thing.
By the way, I'm just going to say that was my first ever film. Mitsubishi.
So around about 97, 98 was when they came on the scene.
Yeah, and when I had them, mate, honestly, I've never said this to my audience actually, but they were I took them and I was only 17, 18. I was like, mate, these are crap. I gave a dealer an earful, mate. These are crap.
Yeah.
So I took another. So I have a couple more. I had a couple more. Like about 1 hour later, I was like, "Whoa, mate! I better fucking apologise to this geezer. These are the business, man."
Yeah,
I think I overtook, but they were quality.
And I think people weren't used to ecstasy because what had been going on over the last, say, 6 months leading up to that point was there was pills around, but they had all sorts. They might have been amphetamine based. They may have been slightly ketamine based. They would have been a totally different buzz. So if somebody started taking ecstasy in that stage, they didn't know what it was. And when they took a real pill and they finally realized what it was, they thought, oh my God, this is what it's all about. So at that stage, me and my business partner who were running this club at the time, we fell out because he was basically spunking all the money. He was terrible. He was spending so much money, he was spending it quicker than we earned it. So I couldn't really trust him, because he was getting us in a lot of trouble. We were getting people banging on the doors. We were getting debt collectors coming around. It was getting really dangerous. And we thought, I don't mind if it gets a bit dangerous, but not if it can be avoided. We just try and avoid this if we can. It's not good for business. People kicking your door down and wanting to kidnap you. It just doesn't look good in front of your customers. So
as a dealer yourself, did you ever used to give it on the sub to customers? I'll pay me next week. Did you used to
always,
do
mate. Credit Nation.
Yeah. But obviously, there obviously would have been times when you just got screwed over. What did you do in that position?
Yeah. It's a difficult one to. I've always had a threshold of when in the early days you don't get out over for little bits. And someone's not. If you're selling one or two, you're getting paid cash. If you're selling 5 or 10, you're getting paid cash. If you're selling 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, you're gonna mostly do it on credit to some point. I will only give the big lumps to people that I trusted and knew. Now, what might happen is they might struggle. They might not necessarily have had you over, but they might have had a situation where people are always paying late. And if someone has calculated their profit and spent it before they've got the money in, there's going to be a shortfall. There's going to be a deficit in that number. So come Monday, Tuesday, it's collection day. So how are we getting on, mate? Oh, yeah, not bad. I got some money here for you. What do you mean, some or all of it? I've had a few problems. So because they're a good customer, you give them a bit of leeway. You work together and you build good business relationships. But what you do get is some people out and out want to rob you. And they'll take some stuff on face value and they just won't pay you and they'll disappear. They will just totally disappear. And they will just leave the city and run. And for the sake of what? A couple of grand.
Did you ever get? Well, you don't have to say anything, but I say no comment. I'm not a police officer, I'm just interviewing you, but you can say no comment. But did you ever have to perform any violence on people that may not have paid up?
No, I didn't need to, because luckily I had people with me, and I've had some really serious people working with me in the past, and they just got to bring them up and bark, and they pay rapidly. So yeah, there was. I've always had people on call that I could to give a shout if I needed to get funny. I operate as a business, so I wasn't really into the violence, and it doesn't mean I'm not capable. I just don't like violence. I don't like the thought of going down there and giving some load of shit when someone else is much better at it than I am. And I'm not an intimidating person. So that I won't be to go in and say, pay me money. They're going to look at me and go, well, you're not very scary, are you, Rich? So I'm going to have to figure out something else out. So I'll have to come up with a different solution. So I had people which are really good at their job. And in the end, what happens, you navigate your way through and you find the right people to work with. You just don't get had over. People have problems. people getting arrested, people getting nicked. And if somebody gets nicked and they keep their mouth shut, you take it as a loss. You accept that as a loss, as part of that thing. So yeah, it was. I never had to. I could actually put my hand on my heart and say I never got violent with anyone ever. I never got violent.
What about those? You must have come across, especially the cocaine gang, because it can be very, very addictive. Those that are really addicted, clearly got problems, probably begging you, like knocking on the door, 3 a.m., scratching the walls. I need some. I need some.
Do you know what? I never witnessed it because I went to sell a coke I won't say bulk, but I never sold grams. I never got involved with selling bits because I had such a good customer base for pills. I made it public. So, right, you lot, I'm moving out of this trade. I'm going to start weaning off it because you're making like pence, literally pence. It's just not worth getting a 10-year sentence for something which wouldn't even cover the cost of your fuel. So I'm going to have to move into somewhere else. So I looked at coke and I spoke to a friend of mine who was doing it. He said, yeah, he can get it. So look, why don't we just get it in pure as it is, just press it and redo it. So I was get all the kit. And he said, yeah, I've thought of that. So we started doing that. So I started off getting a 9 at a time, which is a quarter kilo, and do it in ounces. Just the people that I knew were interested in it. I said, well, let's give it a whirl. And they would then speak to their dealers who they used to get it from. So I've got a new line, and I just jumped in it ounces. So I never had the bit of people banging on the door saying, "Oh, Richard, I need something." Because
so you went straight to being the top man, really. So you was obviously feeding down, and then they'd feed
down.
I just
avoided. I mean, I saw people, people that were friends at the time who were selling. They're buying ounces, and they were breaking down into 0.8s, and they get 35 deals. I saw how busy they were. I thought you got this one thing here, and you're having 35 different phone calls, 35 different levels of communication with 35 different people to make yourself 700 or 800 quid. And I'm thinking that's a lot of risk. There's a lot of footwork. And I saw the people selling the bits like that. They're the ones which are involved in it, taking it, because they will go to a house to someone who's clearly addicted. They will then chuck it on the table. The first thing they do is they're going to break it open. They're going to say to the guys, well, do you want one? Because they're going to get a cheap deal next time round. So yeah, why not? It's one of those. So they'll and before that, they're having a line every time they drop one off. So they're absolutely hammered. I was never involved or never really wanted to be a part of that because I just saw it going out to people which were clubbing and partying, which is where we kind of evolved from the pill scene. We evolved from going into all the people that are going out dancing and taking pills just got a bit older. They stopped dancing and started going to pubs instead or city bars and having a bit of coke instead. And so that was what I witnessed. I didn't witness people sat in rooms, sat there shaking, rattling for another lot. I didn't ever see that. But don't get me wrong, I've been on sessions where we've been sat in the room, we've ran out at 3 a.m. and we sat, well, we need another one. We need another one. Who are we going to ring? Well, I've got some stored somewhere. Or get me a taxi. I'll go back and get some. I'll come back with a lump of it and just charge everyone. So, that has happened, but, not through the sake of people ringing up on, say, a Wednesday night. Yeah, so have you got anything there? Never had it. So, a bit desensitized, I suppose, to the whole industry, aren't I? With that perception.
Well, by the way, to the chat, I will go to some questions towards the end of the show. Maybe we're going to look at ending it about 9, so maybe about 10 to 9, we'll get some questions in. We'll give or take. That's just to the chat there. I hope you're enjoying it. Let's get a 1 in the chat if you're enjoying it. 2 if you think it's a load of rubbish. If you put 2, you're getting banned. You're not welcome. I was going to say, but have you got? I mean, you must have had like rival drug gangs that knew you, or like stepping on their turf, as you would say. Did you have any of these issues?
You get friction. What I mean by that is, in order to get to a certain position, when you start at a certain level, let's say 9s, there's probably in my city, or maybe for argument, let's say there's 20 to 30 people in Bristol selling those numbers. So it's quite a big circle. So you don't know everyone there. You'll know a few because we used to form alliances with different people. If we were struggling one week and they weren't, we would go to them and increase each other's buying power and vice versa. As you go up a little bit higher, you start selling the kilos, that circle reduces significantly. So probably something like 7 or 8 people. And when you start doing multiple kilos, you're down to maybe 3 or 4. And you all know each other because if you've got the right kind of acumen about you, the right level of business mind in your head, you'll all elevate to a point. The gangsters don't get past the kilos or the 9s because they're too violent, they're too loud, they're too aggressive. The clever ones do, but the really aggressive, dangerous ones rarely go above that point because the way they conduct themselves, it brings a lot of heat and attention to themselves. So they either get caught and arrested and taken off the scene altogether, or they get caught and arrested and released. They don't trust them, or they get caught, arrested, go to prison, they come out and you don't go near them because they're too hot again. So either way, they undo themselves because they're too public in what they do. And I would avoid these people like the plague. I go nowhere near them. So just not going near anyone who's been in prison, anyone that's got a name for it, anyone that's been recently arrested and hasn't been done for it, because clearly there's something wrong there, isn't there, to not get nicked.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a tight knit group there.
Yeah.
So obviously, let's discuss. So obviously, you had your business. So was you using your business to launder money, cocaine money?
Well, I can't say it was money. I was laundering money. What I was doing, I was successfully set up a legitimate business, which was managing, but every now and again it might need a little bit of help. But I think in order to launder money, you'd have to have something in the bank to show that you've cleaned it up and it's there. But for myself, I was literally managing to pay a few wages. So I suppose you could look at it as some kind of laundering, but I wouldn't say I was never convicted of money laundering. And the prosecution actually said, we know Mr. Jones is using this money to support using a dirty business to support his clean income. So the prosecution knew what was going on. They just thought, well, money laundering is nothing compared to what this guy's been done for. So I don't think I've never had enough in my hands at any one time to think, right, let's get this cleaned up. I was making enough money to filter into the business to keep it afloat. I made enough money to have a little bit of fun with, and another money then was getting plowed into cars for the motorsport business. So yeah, and it's very up and down. You're never like there, and you're making loads of money for a long time. You might do it for a little while, then you just drop. Something goes wrong, someone gets arrested, something goes tits up somewhere along the line, and then you're back to square one, or even further down. You're even further down to square one.
Was your wife? I don't know how old your kids was at the time, but was I aware of what you was doing?
No, crazy. My kids were born in 1999 and 2005, and I'd started doing this in 95, so it was already part of my life. I was already had this kind of alter ego, if you like, of Rich that was selling the drugs and everything else, and Rich that was always working. I always had a job of some kind. So when my wife see me going to work, I was working in a van as a van driver. I was still doing my job, but I was also on the phone all the time, setting arrangements, using the delivery van to do my job as well. So I always managed to find a way to run everything parallel.
So basically, the first time I heard about it was basically when you got arrested, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Mate. Yeah. I shouldn't be laughing, really, should I? But it was
you're divorced now. You're divorced now. So.
Yeah.
All right. So one last question, and then we'll go on to the arrest. I mean, on a rough scale, how much do you reckon you earn from it?
Over that time, I reckon if I could, and this would be, I'll give you a rough estimate. I think with the highs and lows and the losses and money that was earned, I think I could have earned probably over that. If I disregard the first 3 years, because that was just living to party, you weren't really clearing any profits.
Yeah,
I would say it's got to be a few million. Would have to be a few million. But then again, you'd look at how much you would have lost on that as well. Would be well up to like probably $500,000 on losses because of things going wrong, arrests going on, people just dying, stuff like that. Stuff happens, and money. There's always some kind of loss when something goes wrong. There's always a financial hit of some kind. If someone gets nicked in their car and your goods, you've lost 40 grand straight away. And you got to pay that 40 grand off. So yeah, it would have to be a fair few quid. But I was never in that situation where I was sat there thinking, I've got loads of money, I'm surrounded in dosh, because it never happened. It was never at the point, because I always left money out. I'd much rather someone owe me the money than me be sat on it. Let them burden the risk of looking after your money for you. If someone's good for it and they owe you 100 grand, so, well, they just pay it to me later. I don't need it right now, mate. Just pay it to me later. And that would be the case. And collect it when you need it.
Interesting. Okay, so before we go on to the rest, was you aware that maybe they'd been looking into you Did you become aware, like, the police are looking into you for doing what you were doing, and and get you a bit paranoid? You know what I mean? Especially if you was on it as well. I'm sure the paranoia was through the roof.
Yeah, well, I stopped taking drugs in 2008. So
Okay.
from 08, when things started really, the minute I started my motorsport company in April 2008, that's the day I stopped taking drugs,
Okay, cool.
because I thought I need my head to be clear, not just for the drugs game, but this is now an actual plan. This is an execution to exit as an exit strategy. I need to be firm. I need to be strict with myself. So I stopped taking drugs in 08, and I actually focused on building the business and building the drugs business at the same time. So these two parallels were building at the same time. But bear in mind, we're also in the middle of a recession. The credit crunch hits in 2007. So we were already in a credit crunch. So business was hard. So I couldn't inject as much passion, I call it passion, into a business as I wanted to, because it would look stupid. It would have looked unnatural at that current state of affairs. So I had to be very careful how I built this business, and I had to make it build a lot slower than I could have done, because for one, people weren't spending money they wanted to spend. I was doing track days, organizing track days on an airfield, and I would literally pay, I think it's 1,200 quid, no, grand, to rent this part of an airfield for a whole day. I'd get St. John's ambulance down there, I'd get a snack van down there, and I'd charge people per head to come on the track, 50 quid, 75 quid a head. And they were paid down as a car club, and they'd just drive around and I'd marshal it, and I'd look after it. Now, I could have quite easily filtered as much money into that event as possible. It's all cash then, it's all taken on the gate. So I could have put 10 grand onto that day, but it would not have looked right with the current state of affairs, because people weren't spending the money. And also, if they are watching me and then they look at this, then it was only, Rich, it's only you driving around this track field on your own that you've taken 10 grand. How do you manage that? I've had days where I've organised an event and it's like 10 of us there. It was great. Just me, a couple of cars and a couple of mates. So I had to be really careful about how to build things up. So getting watched was, the police were watching me from this is speculation, because this is going to be in the books as well. Is I believe the police had an idea about me from about 2009 onwards, because something that happened in someone else's life. They were forced into a situation where they had to give evidence to a police under caution, and they had a choice to either talk about their particular offence, what they'd been caught for, or roll over on the lot of us. And he chose the latter, I believe. So that meant that the police had an indication from 2009 onwards. So I think they were kind of keeping an eye on me, keeping an eye on my movements, keeping an eye on my expenditure, what was going on. And bear in mind, the guy that was giving them the information was right in my organisation. He was in the thick of it. He was a central hub to what I was doing. I ran everything through him, and he managed everything. So he knew everything, and he was giving everything to the police. He had the lot. He had it boxed. He had it cleaned right up. So round about at the end of 2010 or mid 2010, I had the garage refitted out to start I was there. I was nearly there to get this place done during the summer of 2010. I was racing professionally. I was sponsored a drift team in the BDC. I was doing time attack. It started off as the most amazing year of my life, and I thought, this is where I need to be. This is going to be it. This is going to be my life. Motorsport, racing, developing cars, garages getting constructed and built right now. Played everything I had went into that garage. I mean, everything. I had to sell stuff up to make that garage work. And it was completed on the 1st of October, 2010. That was the opening date.
Sorry, can I just ask what actually happened to the grass in the end?
He didn't get done. He was still out. He was
because he grassed all you lot up.
Yeah, he made a tactical withdrawal for round about 2000, round about November 2010. He withdrew from my business slightly. He said, look, I need a bit of time out. He made this excuse that he wanted to back out slightly. I thought, yeah, fair enough, mate. You've done a cracking job. But the problem was, he was going to take over my business for me. He was going to take everything off my hands. And the aim was to take my Coke business, give it to him. He would pay me a retainer monthly to keep my motorsport business going during the recession, until such point as it was self-sufficient. Then I would finally sign it over to him properly. So, right, there you go, mate. It's all yours. And I would give the nudge to all the people that I'm supplying. So, yeah, he's now your supplier. I'm out of it. I'm done. That was the plan in hindsight. So basically, he sort of like started to withdraw slightly. I thought this is a bit odd. We planned all this thing, and then literally on the 23rd, the 28th of October, the first arrest happened for one of my runners, one of my best mates as well. So I was hit by two things. One is my best mate. I felt awful about him getting nicked, and quickly followed by the fact like, crap, he's got 40 grams worth of coke in the boot as well. I've now got to pay for that. Crap. And I've just played everything I had. Everything I had was played into the garage. I had no money left. I was done. I was literally skint. I was dependent on the business, the coke business, to keep everything going. But that no longer existed, because as soon as the first arrest happened, you shut down. That's it. You severed that. All the customers said, look, guys, sorry, this isn't right. He's been arrested. This doesn't happen. So we had to shut it down. And then it was like, you could then sense your doom. You could think it's going to be tough. So basically, I spent the next couple of months. There was another arrest at the end of November and another arrest at the end of December. And that sealed my fate. That was it. It's definitely
you just know time's coming. So
I knew
you was the final arrest then, was you?
Yeah. So basically, we sat in and we got into the beginning of 2011, and a couple of months had gone by, nothing happened. I thought, okay, I still don't like it. I'm still not completely sure. I'd given up. I stopped trading, and the garage was beginning to pick up. We had a few customers coming through the door. We're coming into the spring. We thought I could just about do this. I think I might just get through, because we had about 3 or 4 big projects into the garage, which would have been good. It would have paid the wages for a couple of months, and I thought, and then we'd have been into the summer. We'd have been getting cars over servicing, track preparation. I thought this is going to be all right. We're going to get through it. So we did a track day in April 2011, and the focus of the track day was there was the tsunami in Japan in, I think it was February or March 2011, the massive one. It was all televised, and we did a thing because the Subaru factory had been hit by this tsunami. So we did a thing to raise money for saving the children in Japan. So we did this track day in Castle Combe. Passenger rides all day. We're out in the race cars, having a really massive day, loads of publicity, loads of potential customers. I thought, this is it now. We've finally done it. We're there. It's been 4 months since the last arrest. I think we're going to be all right. So went into work on the following week. Went on the Monday, deposited the funds in the bank from the money raised on the day. Tuesday morning, back in work. Sat in my office Tuesday morning and looked at the reception and seen the 4 cars go by the door, and I thought, I just had this little penny drop in the back of my mind. I thought, it's like a subconscious thing. I thought, oh crap, this is them. Just 3 Focuses, dark coloured cars, drove past. The last one stopped, so you could just see the back of it through the door. I mean, I was sat in the office looking through out to the like a concrete hard standing outside. I thought, this is it. So I got up. I thought, well, let's go. It was like it brought just a few seconds. I was going to go up and see what's going on, just in case it's people that owe me money or people I owe money to. I didn't know for sure. But in my mind, when I walked out and saw these probably about 10 or 11 officers getting a car, or smartly dressed people not with ties on, but shirts and jeans, I thought, that looks like the police to me. And they walked over to me. I thought, yeah, this is it. And they said, Rich Jones. I said, yeah, morning. And so, can we just have a quick word? And that was it. They said, we're arrested you on conspiracy to supply cocaine, or classic drugs, namely cocaine. And that was it. I thought, this is it. And that was it. Straight into, I just shut down. I just thought, Christ, here we go. This is it.
So obviously straight to get questioned. How long was you in the cells until you had to appear in court?
Oh, it was a while. I think because the police turned up at somewhere like 8 a.m. They took me around about 7:45. I think we headed down to Staple Hill in Bristol, and I was processed, put in the cells, and you do your fingerprints, your DNA, and your palm prints, and everything else, your photograph, and that. And I didn't start my interview until must have been about 7 o'clock. So I was in there for a good few hours, about a good 10 hours, I think, sat in the cells, just dwelling on my actions, how I was going to get through this. I knew I was going to be interviewed, and I knew this. I didn't notice this, but I knew the firm I've been recommended to get. So it was just, in my mind now, I was back in the army again. It was kind of like another dangerous challenge. It was in theory, it was life threatening, because it was threatening my life as I knew it and my freedom. So I took it as this interview, which was going to go, that I was going to sit under, was something that I had to do, and I had no choice. And I quite like the thought of having no choice, because when you're pushed into something, you can really see how well or how bad or how you can fail on these things. And like a complete idiot, I just thought, well, I didn't, because of my dad being in the police, I got a huge respect for the police, and I didn't want to look like a criminal. And I don't. I look like more like a copper than I do a criminal. And I've been told that many times on TikTok. You look like a filth. That the guy's undercover. The guys are fed. All that sort of stuff.
Oh, there's
And
one or two people I know that will definitely be calling you a fed, mate.
yeah, I know.
The chat will know who I'm on about, but
yeah, well, I'm not. So I sat there and I thought to myself, I don't want to. I'm too nice for my own good. Sometimes I went there and my brief said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, look, I got nothing to hide. I'm all right." He said, "Well, do you want to go comment?" I said, "Well, yeah." And I thought, what? And all of my mind, I'm thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? But I thought, no, I want to do this. And it's just me being cocky, being stupid, thinking, oh, I can do this because everything I did with the business, every customer I had, because by this time I only had a few customers because they were quite big ones. There was a parallel. With my legit business and them. So they would either come to the track days, they'd either bring a car to the garage, or there'd always be a plausible reason why I should be getting hold of them or speaking to them. And we all spoke about cars on the phone. So I rang up on my phone. I say, we'll be dropping that car down to you later on, or your car's fixed, it's ready for the service is done. We'll get it down to you later on. It'd always be coding as some description around the garage, which in my mind was plausible. The fact that there was an informant in place, and they knew exactly what I was talking about. Their code didn't mean anything. It just didn't mean, it wasn't worth anything. But to me at the time, it seemed like a pretty good idea. So the interview went through, and I did all right, but do you know what? At the end, it's designed to catch you out. It's designed.
If you went no comment, do you think you would have got less years?
Wouldn't make any difference, mate. No, if I'd have go no comment on that interview, they had me banged to rights with the evidence on cell site. They had me banged to rights, but that was just the first arrest. I didn't know there was another one coming a couple of months later, did I? So that's the one that really sort of galvanized everything for the first arrest, because it kind of it gave more evidence to put me into it. It created a bigger picture of where I sat within these two conspiracies.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously the second arrest, and then I believe you went to court. Did you get sent straight down as well? You weren't given any any bail. So, but in fact, first of all, what was the reaction from your wife? And your parents and maybe your children? Like, what was the reaction from the family when you first told them?
Well, the kids were too young to really understand, because they were at the time, they were like 10 and 10 and like 5 or 4, so they didn't really understand. So that was quite a relief. The problem that was obviously my parents. I didn't even tell them. They didn't even know. They didn't know about it. So why bother telling them? There's no point, is there? I'll just leave it as it is for now. I'll worry about it when I go to trial. That's going to be It's going to be year off. It was my wife I had to consider. So when the first arrest happened, they gave me bail, which I didn't realize I was going to get. I thought I was going to get remanded, and automatically I thought, that's great, I'm not going to jail. Then straight away I thought, oh God, I got to go and explain this to the wife now, because they've been searching the house all day. I've not spoke to her. Oh no, I did speak on a phone call from the prison. I said, look, sorry, from the police station. I said, look, I've been arrested. I said, I don't know what's going on there, because I couldn't tell him what it was about, because I had to basically protest innocence, because I was protesting innocence to the police. I couldn't say anything then. And then he got me home, dropped me at about 1 in the morning, and I sort of like knocked on the door. I didn't have my phone because the police had my phone. Banged on the door, and she stuck out the window. She said, "All right, yeah, come in." I thought, we get on really well. We don't have we're very placid people, and it was like I went to start. She said, "Just get some sleep. We'll talk about it in the morning." So I'm going to go to work in the morning. She said, "Well, look, we'll talk about it when we get 5 minutes. Don't worry, kids are fine. Let's just worry about that for now." And I thought, great, I'll get a good night's kip at least. So I went to sleep, went to work, and then come back to work, and we didn't really talk about it. I just tried to start explaining to her that it's someone down the garage. There's someone down the garage which has been involved in drugs, and they kind of spending money in the garage, and then I've been pulled into this conspiracy. And it, to me, in my mind, that's again sounded plausible, because I was so used to lying and giving her sort of like being deceitful to her, that in my head it worked. I don't think it did. Whether she just didn't want to argue, whether she just said, look, not interested, kids are safe, let's worry about it at some point when we got to worry about it. So we just kind of buried it between us. We didn't ever really sit and have an open discussion about it. We just sort of took it and stuck it out of the way and said, let's just pretend it's not happening, which is really unhealthy, really unhealthy, because it could have manifested itself into something a lot worse. But then when I got arrested the second time in July, They belled me again. It was a silent interview. I didn't give any words at all. If anyone wants to see it, I think it's on my Instagram account. I think I've got a copy of it on there. And it was a silent interview, and they belled me for a week. And I had to go back and get my phone back off. And then when I got back, they reminded me straight away. So I didn't know I was going to be going in. So I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to my wife or the kids. But then when she saw me get the rest of the second time, I said it's the same thing. It's all a part of the same thing. I've been caught up in it. So I just kept lying. And I was using so much energy trying to hide the truth from the people I should have been honest with. I could have focused on what was really important. That was being honest, accepting my guilt, pleading guilty and getting a lesser sentence. That's what I should have done. But I didn't. Stupid.
So you actually pleaded not guilty as well. Oh my word.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, we'll go into prison life now. So obviously, you first time obviously in prison. How was you treated by your fellow inmates to begin with? Did anyone try and test you to see how you would respond?
Yeah, so basically, I've done 5 weeks remand in Gloucester, which didn't really count because it was just 5 weeks remand, co-defendants in there. It was a chilled out jail. That was just like a preliminary warmer to what prison could be like. So I had a handle on it.
Okay.
Got found guilty after trial, May the 17th, 2012. That was it. Then I was going down. So I was taken down the back with 2 co-defendants, Vlad the Serb and Lawrence, my other co-defendant. We've both been found guilty. We're getting it sent down. There was other guys in the prison waiting who'd already started a sentence, and they're waiting for sentencing with us. Because bear in mind now, they pleaded guilty because they were caught with goods. We've been found guilty, so we're now aligning ourselves, getting ready for sentencing. So this was May 2012. So we all landed in there, but we got on different wings. So Vlad had been there for like nearly a year on remand. So they were on one wing with 2 other guys. Lawrence went to A wing in Bristol. I went to G wing. So I was on with Todd. So I put in this with a decent guy. Next morning, the exercise came up. We get some fresh air. It's Friday. I thought I was going to get some fresh air. It was a nice warm day. Walking around, I was quite overweight then as well, man. I wasn't slimmer like I am now. I was carrying a few pounds, and chat to lads on the yard, and you just ask questions about each other. So what you're in for, what's happening. You learn about each other a little bit, just so you know if you can trust them or not. And this guy just sort of walked off after 10 minutes, and I thought that's odd, very rude of you, but not to worry. I'll just keep walking around on my own. So got back on the wing, and the next day he was ignoring me. I thought, well, fair enough, I don't want to talk to you anyway. And then there's everyone else was just looking at me like this. And I thought, oh, something not right here. Something not right. And then saw Cody on exercise, and he said, I should get some on the B wing, which I did after about a week. I said, landed on that wing. After having a week of being like ignored on the one wing, I got there, and he said, we got you over because we just found out you've been told that you're undercover police on G wing. I said, oh, really? He said, yeah, they thought you're undercover. I said, what? They'd all made their mind up, had they? Didn't bother speaking to me. He said, no, they thought you were undercover. That's why they weren't talking to you. I said, oh, that's funny, isn't it? So I was on B wing, and I got on there, and within 5 minutes, I was there with 2 co-defendants, a guy that I used to work with in security and other stuff. Another guy that did supply code down in Oxford, he was there as well. And it's just like it was just suddenly I thought, this is all right. They got me a job on the servery. So all of a sudden, I'd gone from one wing where I was totally alienated because they thought I was undercover to one wing where I knew I belonged. And these guys are more sensible. They're grown up. They had a different attitude about. They didn't judge me by how I looked. They judged me by my actions and who I was, not by who they thought I was.
It's not quite lucky, really. I mean, lucky that no one actually tried to attack you. I mean, if they just actually, I'm convinced he's a copper. You know, like,
it could have been. It could have gone tits up at any time. It really could have just gone haywire, and I didn't care because I was oblivious. They probably just thought, well, this guy doesn't care. He clearly is undercover. He's walking around like he doesn't, like he's not. No, I just didn't know. I just had no idea.
But did you have a cellmate though in that wing?
On G wing I did. Yeah. Well, he was older and he was suffering.
Well, the wing, is this the wing where like everyone thought he was a copper?
Yeah. So I was somewhere there, but he didn't come out of his pad because he was older guy. He had prostate problems, but he stayed in his pad. He stayed in his cell and went to education. And we were chatting away, and he was good as gold. He was in for a crop, so he was absolutely fine. And he got to know me because we'd spend a lot of bang up together for the first week just chatting, and he got to know me, and he knew the truth. But he didn't know what they thought because he didn't go out his pad anyway. But on the other wing, on B wing, it was single cells, which was lovely. Tiny, 7 foot by 7 foot. But there's no toilets, it's just called sanitation. There's like a toilet on the wing, on the spur. There's only 8 people on the wing. which is really nice. So yeah,
8 people, is that all? Bloody hell.
yeah. So basically, it's different. It's called spurs. So you've got 2 short spurs, which is 8 people on each side, and a long spur down the middle. So we look at it, it's like a sort of like a letter T, if you like. A long spur holds 16 cells, so it's 3 floors. You get on a short spur, 8 cells. It's quiet. It's lovely, really nice. And it's things like the guys that have been there, they've been there for like a year, so they had good jobs. They got the job on a survey literally within a day. Literally that day, I was on the survey that night. I'd landed. So the guys who were all on the wing were most put out the fact that who's this guy just turned up and he's on the survey. So he's with us. He's our mate. And it's like 4 big lumps behind the survey. So, and we had as much food as we like. It was all right. It started off. It could have been disastrous, but within a week, it was like, this is going to be easy.
What about okay, so you must have seen some attacks. Did you experience? Well, yeah. Before first talk, did you see anyone getting attacked? Anyone being killed? Yeah,
there was
brutal.
Witness it. No, well, in HMP Bristol, we went out to sentencing for the day. So we popped out for a day out to court to get sentenced, and when we came back, we found there was a lad had been assaulted, and it's quite. This happens not often, but it happens. 2 lads had gone in on him. I don't know much. I'll be careful how I word this. They knocked him out, broke his jaw, prison spoon, and they went into the night safe, and they dug out his drugs.
Right.
So I don't want to go into that in too much detail,
I think yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I think most people understand what that. So they were put on a charge.
How would they even know it's there, man?
They got word that he'd been on, that he'd just come back off of that he was holding. So they knew that he had these things secreted about his person. So they went in on him and they literally messed him up. But they were done for that's sexual assault. So they were done for that. They were in a lot of trouble for what they'd done to him. Really bad. But that was something for. I even wrote that on my. I made this chart. I still got it at home. In fact, it's around the corner somewhere. And I did this. I got 2 bits of A4 paper, laid them out sideways, landscape, so the lines were facing up and down, back to back. And I made a chart lasting 7 years out of this piece of paper. And what I do, I'll break it down my sentence for 7 years. And I put on it at the very beginning, so and so raped. And I put, because it was an interesting incident. I thought, and that went in my diary because I thought anything, because I kept 7 years of diaries. And I thought, I'm gonna at some point these diaries are going to come in useful. There's going to be, I've got so much.
Sorry, is there a lot of sexual assault there? Because obviously there's a lot of people that's having a lack of sex or whatever.
No, only classed as sexual assault because of what they want that's hidden in you. Yeah. But no, not a lot. There's a lot of bullying. There's a lot of standard assaults. The only assault I saw, which was really worth anything, was a guy who got knocked out in the gym. He just fell back and he hit his head on the apparatus and he just opened the back of his head up. And that was really bad. But we thought he'd been hit by a weight because he was led there and he had blood. Like when he was breathing, he was just spitting blood out of his mouth. What happened? The guy punched him square in the face, busted his lips up. He fell back, cut his head open on the apparatus. And when he was led back, we thought he was choking on his blood because a lot of blood coming out of his mouth. But it wasn't. It's just very graphic at the time. We've been in the prison about 3 weeks. And we saw this. Well, this is what we've got to get used to. This is prison, isn't it? This is the way it's going to be. But we thought he'd been assaulted with a weight because all we heard was this massive thud, but it was his head hitting the equipment as opposed to the weight hitting him. But yeah, that was pretty bad. Outside of that, I witnessed a lot of self-harm, a huge amount of self-harm, which was very, very graphic. I mean, really graphic stuff. Because I was an orderly in the block for about 8 months or 9 months, no, 10 months, sorry. And I saw a lot down there, hell of a lot. I saw people on dirty protests, people on suicide watch, people cutting their wrists, people just cutting up really badly because they're in a really bad state of
Would this be because of bullying or just can't handle?
Sometimes mental health coping mechanisms kick in. Anxiety disorders can go that far that they just find they need a release, and sometimes people just find. And the worst thing is some people will do it to get what they want as a threat, because some when smoking was allowed in the prisons pre-2018, some of the guys in the block would say, I'm going to slash out, I want a smoker's pack, because in the block you're on basically you got no money coming in and they want to smoke, so they would say, I'm going to slash out unless you get me some burn. And they would sometimes the staff would test us, well, no, we haven't got any burn. They would then slash up and then they would get the burn afterwards. You know, so okay, just don't do it again. They'll be permitted to give them a half ounce of tobacco just to shut them up, keep them quiet. And these guys are finding it as a way, a method. And I don't mean the true self-harmers. For true self-harmers, it's very different. But for the people using it as a method to get what they want, that's a whole different kettle of fish. And I've seen a lot of it. And it's one guy cut his ear off. He sat there and just took it with a plastic.
Because he couldn't have a fact.
No, he was just an oddball. He wasn't. I wouldn't call him a prolific self-harmer. He was just something not right about him in some ways. And he did it with a plastic prison knife, and they're not the sharpest you get. And it must have taken a while to get through it, but he did get through most of it in the end. And I came into the cell with the staff because we were on the orders. We were doing cell cleans, and we saw it on the side, and it was just down. It's like a little bit of gristle. I said, and I looked, and he said, and I just couldn't believe he'd just taken his ear off with this dinner knife. I couldn't get it. I couldn't get my head around it. But once I've been in prison for quite a few years, I began to understand mental health, and I can understand, although I can't relate to it, I can understand why some people may go to certain lengths to deal with maybe internal demons, if you like.
Okay, so what was that question I wanted to ask? Did you ever come across any prisoners that we might know? You know, obviously been in the papers a lot, or quite famous, obviously for the wrong reasons. Well, some might actually be for the right reasons. If it's against the paedophile.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, there was a few all on the same wing in Loudon Grange. I was on P wing, which is known as Millionaires Row, because that wing was where all the big drug dealers went, all the big importation people went. It was just a very quiet, very calm wing, and on that wing there were some big names. One of them was Kenny Noy from the M25 murders, or the M25 road rage incident. Kenny was on there, and he was at 65 at the time, extremely fit, trained a hell of a lot, very, very quiet, just did his bird. I mean, he'd been in prison at that stage probably about 17, 18 years. So I think he got 25 years to do. So he was there. We had the younger brother of Pat Tate from the Essex Boys on the same wing. Well, I'm not going to give his name, but people can Google that and find out who he is anyway. He was there, good as gold, in for big conspiracy. But the one which no one liked, one which we didn't like, was a chap, and I'm going to give his name because I don't like him. He's weird. There's a chap, we called him Chucky, and he was called Paul Muller, and he was a chap that was done for kidnapping his son, a toddler, and he was caught, and he's put up by the police, I think on the M4 motorway, and there's photographs of him on the thing in his underpants, and he held his son at knife point, and he was on the wing, and nobody spoke to him because Loudon Grange at the time didn't have a VP wing. It didn't exist. So they would put VPs on the same wing as you, hoping that you wouldn't kill him or stab him. But what they found was
did it not get fucking done in at any point? Sure.
No, because anyone that would have been capable was doing a long sentence and wanted to go home. So you could quite easily go in on them and cause mayhem, but you're going to lose your enhance. You're going to get kicked off this really nice wing. You're going to end up on the council estate with all the lads who don't really care, and you're not going to get your cat there. You can't see when you need it because you got this black mark against your name, an incident, an assault. So most people that want to go home, you don't bother. Lifers certainly don't bother because they're just not going to do it, because unless something goes really badly wrong, a long-termer or a lifer just will not launch that attack unless you're provoked directly, which case is different. You're not going to go out on a whim and have go on some kind of crusade where you're going to start taking out all the pedos, because as nice as it might be, or as nice as it might feel, and very satisfactory, you're not going to go home to see your missing kids because all of a sudden you've been assaulting people left, right, and centre, and you've got this reputation, so your risk's elevated. So no, it just doesn't happen. I'm not saying it should or shouldn't. It just doesn't the way that you'd think it would.
Yeah. Did you have any experience with any convicted paedophiles?
Oh, I wouldn't have. I would. Yeah. So basically, when I went into HMP Oakwood, I was given two job roles. One of them was a veterans rep, and this was in 2014. I landed, and next one in 2015, I got a job as a resettlement coordinator, which meant we'd be given a red band, which that red band means in the Cat C jail, you access all areas, even the VP house block, which is a VP house block with approximately 500 VPs on there. Only, I'd say, a small percentage of those weren't actually because of their index offence. They may have been there because they might have been in the police or prison service or a disability of some kind, or they could have been identified as transgender, or they identified a different way, which means they would have been on a VP wing just for their protection. So, So on that job role, we would go onto the induction wings of both the mains prison, which is everyone else, and the VP side of it, which is all the VPs, pedos, rapists, you name it, they're all on there. So we would go into the thing, we could do what's known as an induction, and we talk about the resettlement journey. We talk about what the prison's got to offer, what would be expected from you, how to progress through this journey. We would deliver the same speech to the lads on the mains as we would on the VPs. And you can tell the difference between the lads on the VP wing to the lads on the mains. We go into the mains and sit down there, and they're just not interested. They're disinterested, chatting. They can't really get out the door and go see their mates. They've done it before. They are born criminals. They're prolific offenders. CCAT jail is known for prolific offenders. The most population is CCAT. And that's the way that it is. So they'll chat. They might listen if they finally want to turn their lives around. They might listen to a few little things we're saying, but not a great deal. You go onto the VP wing and deliver the exact same speech, you have got their attention. They're sat upright, listening, because they haven't got a clue about what's about to happen, because they're a very different breed of person. They're wired up differently, and I'm more about the pedos specifically. You can tell a pedo from a mile off, because they do fit a mold. And they do fit a mold, and you'll see it on social media. We got these things like pedo hunters, and you got these things where people go around.
They just look like one, don't they?
You can see straight away, and sometimes they may be suffering maybe some sort of learning difficulty. They may have a mental age of someone a lot younger. It's no excuse. It's just what you're looking at. But some of them you just see are just pure predators, and they're older. Yeah. They've got this predatory thing, and they got a sense of arrogance, and they've got a sense of a very condescending look, because when they realize you come off of the mains, they think you're a criminal, but they don't see themselves as criminals. They see themselves as someone that's better than you, someone that's not broken the law. They think, well, I haven't broken the law. They say, well, hang on a minute. You're in prison, mate. You're in with us. You have no idea what I'm in for, but I've got a good idea I know what you're in for, mate.
They're the worst of the worst, don't they?
It's bad, mate. It's bad, because they will look down on those, and some of them are in professional jobs. They will be a teacher, or they might be some kind of professor, or they might be something, a doctor.
Who cooks their food? Because don't the prisoners cook your own food?
Yeah, but it's difficult
who cooks their food? Because I'm sure
it's all done the same, so you can't terrorize their food. So what you've got, the kitchens in Oakwood are massive. They're big. It's catering for 2,000 men, so you've got to imagine the size of the setup. So you've got things called brat pans, which are big. It's like saucepans. They're direct heat, so you put all the food in these brat pans. You make the curry, make the chili, make whatever you're going to make. They cook off all the chips and the potatoes in one huge batch, and they're put onto trays. Now these trays are then transported onto trolleys. Now the trolleys for the VP wing are, if you imagine a car park with bays, but the bays are walled off. That's what these bays are like for the trolleys. You've got 14 wings in the prison, and each wing will have, I think, one trolley per wing. So you've got 14 trolleys lined up in these little bays, and you'll have four for Ash, 4 for something else, 4 for something else. They have 2 for the smaller wings. That's your 14 trolleys. The Ash house spot was where the VPs were. So the food gets taken out by usually the staff, and they will load the trolleys up, or a trusted prisoner doing the cooking. They'll load the trolleys up. So they're loading up the Ash trolleys, and then they're closed off. So you can't even get to it. It's not saying he might stick a greenie into the food on his way out there, but everything's cameraed. So there's cameras on the trolley base for people stealing the food. There's cameras in the kitchens in case anyone gets stabbed with a kitchen knife. So it's very hard to terrorize their food. And if you're going to do it to one, you've got to do it to all of them, and including their own food.
Yeah, so, I understand.
Yeah, so you can't even get to it. You can't get to it. Unfortunately,
that's an absolute shame, isn't it?
Is it ever, mate? Yeah.
All right. Okay. We do hear some stories like what's like Islam like in the jail system, because we hear plenty of stories that there's a lot of people like forcefully converting people, basically bullying people. Say, look, if you want to be looked after, mate, you need to convert to Islam. Otherwise, we're going to bully you. So did you see any of this going on at all in your time?
No, I didn't witness anything. What I found was, when I was in Loudon Grange, the Cat B prison, I bought a Health for Heroes wristband. They sold them on the canteen openly, so I bought one. I had it on my wrist, and I was walking. I was having my job in the block order at the time as an orderly down where the guy's doing self-harm. We had a lad there who's practicing Muslim. He looked at me and he said, "Be careful with that, mate." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Some people might not like it." And I said, "So I don't mind if they don't like it. That's not my problem." He said, just please be careful." So I took that as a warning, in a sense of like, just don't parade around with this thing, because some people might take exception to. Because in the Cat B estate, what you've got is that's the next joining prison of security level from the Category A. Now, Category A is the one's going to house the extremists. So Islam isn't the problem; it's the extremism, and that can go in any direction, can't it? You can get extreme views on any walk of life, and practicing Islam wasn't really the issue we had. It was people which were openly extremists, and they were out to get the British. They hated the British forces for their own reasons. That's what I was warned against. So I wore this band proudly around the prison, didn't get any issues at all. I wore that, and when I got to my Cat C prison, which is Oakwood, I had the biggest Muslim population in the country. And I had two bands on. I had a Help for Heroes one, I had a Safa one on. In fact, I used to distribute poppies around the wings. Now, what we found was, we've always heard the rumours about lads who may be getting problems with some guys would try and get them to convert in some way. And that you've got gangs in there. You've got gangs which may be predominantly Muslim. You may get gangs which may be predominantly guys from different cultures. It doesn't mean that necessarily they're trying to force people to join it, but some guys like to be a part of something. And they may feel like they got a point where they will convert. And the automatic assumption is from our end inside is, oh, they must have been forced. Because personally, I'm not a religious person. I don't follow any religion or anything at all. I just do my own thing. Is I would find it hard to understand why someone would do that suddenly out of the blue. Unless some guys will convert because they think they get a better menu with the halal food, and it can be better. But we're all entitled to the same food. All the chicken is halal. All of the various menus come through which are allowed are halal menus. So, we all get the same food. So you think, have you converted so you can get a better bit of scran? Are they converted because they want to go to Eid? If you got to do Ramadan first, and that's when you find out that the guys which can hack it, because they can't hack Ramadan, they just say, "Oh no, I don't want to do it anymore." So I don't witness it personally, but it does happen. But I've never saw it happen, And I do see people who think, well, you don't quite fit there, but who to say he's converted for the right reasons or the wrong reasons? We just never know. I guess what you should do is someone got to say and asking me, "Why? Can I ask you a question? Why have you converted?" And if they said to me, "Oh, yeah, I want to be devout to this religion," I said, "Oh, fair play, mate. That's your thing. Carry on." But I found myself in prison. You learn to be very tolerant with everyone, and vice versa. If you want to progress and get through that journey, you have to understand other people's beliefs and culture, and not just that, people's sort of like different ways as an individual person. Everyone's got their own ways, and you're in this crazy on long-termers wings. We've got some of the biggest lads on there, and lads doing big sets are Muslim, and they love the fact I was in the army. We get on really well because they like the fact if they're in for guns, they love the fact that I've probably fired more guns than they have, and they know the fact that I could probably tell them how to strip their weapons down. So we've got that kind of, you find something you've got.
You're giving them too much advice here, pal. You can hunt it down.
I know. You find something you've got in common, not something you haven't got in common, and you focus on that, and that's what you find gets you through. So, yeah, it's going to happen, but I think more in the Category A's, and then it might fall down. Cat C's it's a very transient population.
Sorry. Would you say there was a lot of cliques in jail? Like, would you see a lot of like white sticking together, black sticking together, like? Brown, like I know we see more in America. It's probably but yeah. Would you see that in British jails?
You do, but not for the reason, not for the sense of being a gang culture. It's all focused around food. Because in prison, food is a big deal. Now, the wing I was on in Oakwood, in Douglas Wing, is a long-termers and lifers wing. So people there were doing a minimum of 8 years. Most were actually doing like life sentences. We were lucky. We earned the privilege to have a cooker on that wing. We earned the privilege to get fresh ingredients delivered to us straight from the kitchens. We get joints of meat, fresh chicken breast, tuna, steaks. You name it, we get anything we like. So we could cook food. So what you would do is people would gravitate to people with the same food interests. And it happened to be usually cultural. So a lot of guys who are, say from Pakistan, for example, would go and they would make the best curries. And they would love that because they had the fresh ingredient, all the fresh herbs, and they cook it properly. No messing, not nuking it to death in a microwave. They'd actually be on a cooker, grinding down the spices, doing the onions, putting everything in there, and that's what their food will focus on. You got to get the Jamaican guys doing the jerk chicken and the dumplings, and then you get the English guys just doing anything like chips and steak and stuff. So that's what you'd have, and you'd actually be really respectful to each other, because we knew, for example, on a Saturday morning, we knew that a lot of guys from England or from my background would like to have a fry-up. We would cook bacon. So the guys who didn't want us to be anywhere near that, i.e. the guys practicing Muslim, wouldn't want to be around that. So we'd arrange it. We'd have that kitchen for the first hour or so, get it on the way, and then you guys go and do your curries. We wouldn't come in if there's one ring free. Wouldn't come in when you guys cook curries and stick on a trend and start banging on the bacon. We just wouldn't do it, because you end up with a problem. So we'd just be respectful to each other, and it worked. It had that really, the dynamic worked so well, because we cared more about being on the wing than we did about anything else. And it's the minute something happened on that wing which would jeopardize that, you'd lose everything. They take the cooker away, they take the food away, they kick you off the wing. So we all thought, well, look, let's do this, let's work together, let's make this work out. And it did. I'm not saying there wasn't friction. I mean, you got 4 rings on a cooker between 85 people. There's going to be friction, there's going to be a queue.
Of course, yeah.
But it worked. It worked.
All right. Like, if anyone wants any questions, let's put them in now. So I'm going to ask a few more questions on my own. So if you've got a question, guys, please put it in the chat now. So just want to talk about the date of your release. Was you aware it was going to be this day? Did it just get sprung up on you all of a sudden? I know you'll have a rough date. So talk us about that day.
Yeah.
How you felt to just literally walk out those doors and smell breath of fresh air and seeing your family.
On this chart I made, remember I said about the 2 minutes of A4 paper? Well, I made that when I had my paper coming to the door saying your release date is July the 12th, 2019. I was currently sat June the 29th, 2012. I thought, right, okay, that's just over 7 years away. Right then, let's get on with it. So basically, you go through your prison sentence, you get to your last 2 years, you do what's known as ROTL, release on temporary license, which means you get to go home, you get to work in the community. Your last 2 years in jail, you're hardly in there. You're literally sleeping there at night, and you get to go home randomly. So once every fortnight for a day. Then the last 9 months at the time, you're going for a couple of days, to 3 days, and 4 days. Each month it gets more and more. So when you get to the end of your sentence, you're home more often than not. So you don't get that sensation of I've just been released. But what you do get is a bit where you go out and you think, I haven't got to go back again. So it was mixed emotions, because emotionally for me, I wasn't engaged with my family anymore, because I'd severed that emotional tie from the minute I got a sentence of 15 years. I had a bit of a breakdown, very tearful moment looking at my photographs of my sons, thinking I'm not going to see you again. So I cried for a good 10 minutes, got out of the system, and then severed that emotion. I detached it and compartmentalized the emotions and just shut them away. So for 7 years, I had no feelings towards my family, because that's how I had to cope with that sentence. Trouble is, when I went home, there were still no feelings. It's still no feelings there. And I think that kind of meant I couldn't re-engage with my wife properly. We both decided we'd grown apart. So we divorced within 6 months. We were divorced within a year.
Oh, so she wanted to stand by you for all that present period.
Yeah, but that was more sake for the kids than anything else, and for me to focus. When we get on, we're best friends. We get on really well. So mutual decision, it worked well. And I'm now getting on really well with the kids. Everything's spot on and where it should be. But to come home was nice. So many plans for veteran support. There's a huge amount of work which I've done in prison, geared up towards supporting veterans. That the plan was to come out, get that set up, get that up and running, and support veterans. But COVID didn't put a stop to it. It just delayed it for a couple of years, which I'm now just picking up the ball again now. So the last 2 years I've been really interested with finishing the book. I got that published in November 2020.
This one, yeah.
That's the one, mate. That's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Need to get it signed now, mate.
No problem, mate.
Get down to Norfolk, mate. Let's have the session, mate. Don't forget to bring some noisy AO. I'm struggling.
Oh yeah,
I'm only joking.
But yeah, so the book went out. That's done better than expected. It's early days yet. And there's still 3 more books to release. So I've got to do the Audible version this year. I've got to write part 3 this year. And so anyone does buy it, part 2 is the first book. There isn't a part 1 yet. That's going to be a prequel in about 3 years' time. So don't worry about part 1 yet. So there is no part 1 as yet. That's going to be a prequel. So yeah, it's been busy, mate. I've been out 2.5. In fact, I've got exactly 5 years left today. I've done 10 years of my sentence so far today. So I've got 5 years left. So 2027 is when it finally finishes, and that will be a day which I'll then celebrate. I'm withholding from celebration because at the minute I'm not finished, am I? Still got 5 years of license.
Just try and keep out of trouble, mate.
Yeah.
Okay, so have you got any advice if anyone is watching that's going into the army or in the army, or any advice for people that's maybe watching us dealing drugs or even facing prison time? Just any advice?
I think for the first one, joining the army is know what you're doing, be committed 100%, apply yourself 100%. Don't give up. If it's what you want, don't give up. Fight for it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. And if you think training's hard, but you get to your regiment, that's even harder. You will, if you can get through all the tests, the character tests, the fitness tests, the test by your own comrades, the guys that you're going to be serving with, you're going to have a great career. Just know that you want it and join for the right reasons. Make sure you join it for the right reason. If you're trying to escape a crappy background in your life, that's okay. But just remember, when you get out, it's not going to last forever. When you go out, that crappy background might still be there. So just be mindful of that. But you're going to love it. People are getting involved in crime, don't do it. Because trust me, it always goes wrong in the end. You always get caught. No matter how clever you are, it's always the weakest link in the chain which will let you down. So you could be the best, the most mindful, savvy person in the world. You will get caught and you will go down and you will lose everything. Trust me, that can happen. People that are going to jail, pack your bags. Contact me if you want any advice, and then just play the grey man. When you get on that wing, don't be the loud one, don't be the joker, don't be the hard man. You will fail. Play the grey man, and you'll be all right. Look at me, they thought I was undercover, and I still survived. So it's doable. It's doable.
You're definitely a fed. You're definitely a fed.
100% easy.
Antifa fed. I'm only joking. I want to talk obviously from Birmingham. The Arthur Labinjo Hughes case really fucking hit me. Do you know what I mean? What do you think is going to? Obviously, the dad and the mom, the stepmom, are going to be well protected at the moment. Are they going to be in isolation for the whole period until they get out, or will they ever be let out?
You mean the baby Arthur one? Yeah. So
the baby Arthur.
Yeah. So he got himself 29? Was it 20 years manslaughter? She got 29 life, didn't she?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So the female estate is different. She won't be in VP, but there might be some sort of measures around to keep her safe. Because I've spoken to people on social media and said the women will be the worst ones. If she's killed a child, that she'll be getting gunned for. I mean, the example was she got fed. What was it? 70 sausage assault.
Yeah.
They tried to poison her. So she's in trouble. She will struggle more than he will. He can go on VP wings and he can ride out on a VP wing as long as he can. If he's been given 20 years, he'll be in a Cat B, possibly a Cat A initially. If they can get to him, he's in trouble. We had a guy in Loudon Grange was in for assault on a baby, and it was a bad one. And they found out the minute they found out what he was in for, within seconds he'd been slashed, and it just takes seconds, literally. So, and all you got to have is someone that doesn't care, someone that's on an IPP, someone who's doing natural life, or someone that's in debt has been paid off to go and do it. And they will do it, and they'll do it properly. And they don't care if they kill you; they just want to cut you. So
exactly. Are they going to keep her in self-isolation like through this whole period? Because it's like if they do let her out, she's going to be fucked, surely.
Yeah, I think there's going to come a time where she's going to have to come. Once her case is no longer as public as it is now, they'll think they'll work the risk. They'll see what the chatter is on the wings. They'll see, look, what's the latest? The staff will be listening to see if she's being talked about, because she's shut away. If she is on some sort of protection, which I don't know how the female estate completely works, if she is being isolated for her own safety, the time will come where she'll have to come out from that, and she will be recognised. And it won't take long. It just take one person. There's people there with nothing to lose and everything to gain. And somebody will want, if there's some kind of price on her head, should be got to. It might take a few years, but they will be got to. People say like Rose West now, they've been got to, but how do you know they haven't been gotten to? How do you know their food hasn't been terrorized? There's always a way to get to them. There's always a way. If they're in isolation, their food has been separately made, so that you can get to their food better. Sometimes if it's that bad, it can be pre-packed, and the staff take it to them to make sure it hasn't been terrorized purely for those reasons. So who knows? I'd like to think so.
Yeah, definitely. It's a horrendous case. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
Just a couple last ones. Obviously, I sent you a documentary. I'm hoping to put you in touch with us so you can have a more lengthy chat with the mother, Tracy there. Justice for the Boys, the three lads.
Yeah.
Josh, Harry, George. What did you make of that documentary? Just from
I really paid attention to it, and you've got to really watch for a good half of it before you realise what they're coming at, haven't you? The angle, because you see the fact they've been. I think the thing for me was the two witnesses where they said they didn't see any fight. There was nothing happening, and they witnessed this fight on the forecourt, and they were told to jog on by the police. It's basically sort of get out of the sea. We don't need to see you here. And they were key witnesses to see the fight, which obviously meant that the guys that have been involved in this fight then had this vendetta against the lads on the bus stop, and they've attacked them with the car. And that's what I'm reading into. The fact they've implanted someone else in another car to say that someone Horatio was another witness they then planted to say that to say that there wasn't a car there or there's some witness. There's a cover up. I can't understand why the cover up, because if the police are going to cover something up, the thing they're covering up would have to be greater than the incident itself. The incident itself was horrific. Three lads lost their lives. So what are they trying to hide? What are they trying to avoid? Why don't they want to bring this to justice? What about a security guard and the footage and the camera?
Well,
he's lying.
I think if this was the other way around, and obviously I hope it wouldn't, and it'd be, to be honest, I'm going to just say, if it was white lads driving the car and there were like three non-whites, I think it would. I don't think there'd be a cover up. But obviously that's something you can go on with Tracy. I'll put you in contact with her tomorrow if you don't mind. I'll give you her number. Or vice versa. I did speak to you before the show. I did want to bring you a quick mention of it to get your thoughts on it. Chris, ask him about cooking in kettles if he's a pro or not.
No, do you know what? I didn't ever cook in a kettle, but I wasn't a big fan of the mackerel curry, which is the big fan of doing the kettle. So what the guys who get the kettles, they'll have a spare kettle, and you can buy one on the canteen if you want. They'd have a kettle for cooking with, i.e. their curries, and kettles for cooking, doing the brewing. I used to poach my eggs in my kettle. I put my egg in a plastic bag and seal it and drop it into the kettle and cook it that way, because otherwise my coffee tasted of egg if I didn't do it properly. So no, I never cooked in a kettle. Didn't need to have microwaves on the wing, so we could do our heating up through them.
And snooker, pool, or blackjack?
Oh, do you know what? Xbox, mate.
What games was it? Like Call of Duty, FIFA, things like that?
No, I was into Skyrim, because it's a long anything long. Skyrim, Dead Island, Fallout.
Could you play these in yourself?
Yeah, I had it in myself.
Pretty cool.
So yeah,
could you play online or not, or does it all have to be offline?
No, they take all the bits out of the Xbox, which they take all the Wi-Fi, and they block up the comms port, so you can't go online at all. No, it's all straight from the disc or from the hard drive if you're lucky.
Okay, I think we're done. Okay, so we'll just go to some final thoughts. Anything you want to plug? So I just want to say thank you for joining me. It's been a fantastic couple of hours. Maybe we'll do another chat in the future. Yeah. Just honestly, massive honor speaking to you. I've been watching your TikTok work.
No worries, mate.
It's fantastic, man. Honestly, the work you're doing for the veterans as well, and even helping people out, because someone will just ask you a question and you'll do a whole video on it, and I think, bless you, man. You're not asking for money. So much respect for coming on and giving me 2 hours of your time. And guys, I don't ask for money, but please donate to this guy's veterans transition, PTSD, whatever they have.
Yeah.
Rich at charlie4kilo.com. Please contact him there if you want to donate. It's been an absolute epic show. But the dance floor is over to you, sir. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to plug? Bit of praise for the host as well. Wink, wink. But,
do you know what? You've been really good, because it's a proper interview. It's nice sometimes because I can go off on one and just talk about my whole journey. It'd take about 3 hours, but you've steered me really well, which is good practice for me, because I start my own podcast next month. So I'll quick plug on that one. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, I've enjoyed it, Chris. I'd like to join you again, because I think it doesn't have to be around my life. I'll talk about anything. I can have an opinion, but I keep it fairly reserved because of my social media background and the fact I get banned so many times. So I need to be somewhere where it's not threatening my platform. So I'm happy to say a few things which I don't normally say. Who knows, mate? There's plenty left in the tank.
Honestly, thank you. But by the way, follow him on TikTok. That's pretty much your main profile. But he was also on YouTube. There's links there in the YouTube chat there. But also just type in Lost Soldier on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and go and find it. Honestly, especially TikTok, his work is brilliant. He updates it every single day. But let's get some support for our main man in the chat. Let's get some R's in the chat, or whatever you want to say. I'll just put Chris is great if you want. But give this guy some support. Please go and subscribe to him on all platforms. Been an amazing show. Hope the chat has enjoyed it. And we'll end up with a tune. This is not my tune, by the way, so if it's rubbish, you can blame Rich.
Blame me. Straight from the 90s, mate. Love it.
It's going to be the 3-minute one. Sorry, mate. I need to
Perfect. He just gets going after that.
Yeah, wait around. I'll speak to you in the background there, Rich, in about 3-4 minutes. Right.
No worries, mate.
All right. Thanks, guys. Speak to you soon. Peace out.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers for watching, guys. Hope you all have a blessed evening. See you later. Peace out.